Activating YouTube stream. Here we go, it's Unfilter. Pre-show. We're about to kick off the overtime for episode 259. We're going to get a couple of pre-show exclusive clips here in just a moment. And then it'll be off into L Overtimes.
I'm not going to dignify that with an answer.
You know what really grinds my gears? And that, people, is what grinds my gears. Tom? You know what really grinds my gears?
While you're laughing, the hackers are dropping malware into your system.
Mommy needs a joint.
Reclaiming my time.
And that, people, is what grinds my gears. Tom?
Okay, I'm just going to set up here for a couple more minutes. I'm going to play one of my favorite NSA leakers because he did it the old school way, the way that really screws your life up, and then they just, well, I guess Snowden well, I shouldn't say that. I guess there's no way to be a good NSA leaker and not get totally effed over by the machine. Either way, he lived through it, and he lives on to tell us his story.
Good evening, friends. We start tonight with a major new report that the president ordered CIA Director Mike Pompeo to meet with a former NSA whistleblower. At the meeting, the two discussed new research showing the DNC computer hacks were actually leaked by someone locally. Russia's alleged hacking of the DNC servers is accepted as gospel by the mainstream media and the political establishment in this country. But one former NSA whistleblower with a team of former intelligence officers at his back is challenging the notion the Russians were involved in any way whatsoever. Bill Binney is known as the whistleblower who revealed millions of dollars of waste in the NSA in 2001. Now his name is returning to the headlines. Reports confirm the CIA director, Mike Pompeo, met with Binney on October 24th at the request of President Trump. The president and the CIA director believe there may be substance to Binney and his team's conclusions the Russians were not involved in the DNC hacks. Instead, they claim it was an inside job. Someone with physical access to the DNC servers leaked the files. After the meeting, Pompeo told Binney to expect a call from his offices. The NSA and the FBI now want to talk to Binney about his research. And joining us now is former NSA whistleblower and intelligence officer Bill Binney. Mr. Binney, thanks for being here tonight.
Oh, thanks for having me.
You were being vilified in the mainstream media. CNN this morning called you a conspiracy theorist. What's your response to that?
Well, I think that that's basically showing the shallow weakness of their argument. They produce no facts whatsoever and simply throw labels at people to kind of characterize and do character assassination. I mean, they have no facts to back up anything they're saying, and that's what I was basically telling Director Pompeo.
How did he approach you? How did this come about, the meeting with Pompeo?
Well, I mean, he opened up by saying that the president said that he should talk to me if he wanted to get facts about Russiagate. And so that's the way it started, and so I told him everything I knew, factually, and basically said that what we had developed in terms of the rates of transfer and all of that, our testing, even international testing of transferring data, clearly showed that it was a local download and not an international hack.
How did he receive that information?
Well, I think he took it very well. I mean, it didn't. Of course, that I never attributed it to anybody because we don't know who did the download or whether or not it went anywhere else. I maintain that NSA would know that, though. If anybody did anything across the net, NSA has so many taps on the fiber network inside the U.S. and around the world, and so many trace route programs embedded by the hundreds around the network, they would know where these packets went.
You're not the only one that believes this. And the letter that was signed and sent to the president was also done by many credible people as well. Interesting how that's being left out of the story. What do you make of that?
Well, it's a way of slanting the whole issue. You ignore facts that don't conveniently fit. That's what the media's been doing. I mean, they must think we're Pavlov's dogs. We're all going to be, through repetition, conditioned to believe everything they say.
When Mr. Pompeo came to you, give us a sense of his demeanor. Was it a sense of urgency? Did he feel like he was on a fact-finding mission? Was he serious? Was he just doing what the president told him to do?
I would think that it was a fact-finding mission kind of a thing. He wanted to find out what the facts were. This is really bad. This means the intelligence agencies, even his own, are not telling him what the facts are. This is not good for our country.
Is it outside the operating standard procedure to have the president tell the CIA director to go to a source and not have some other officer? What does that say? It's just, I mean, I spoke to a congressman on the Hill today who said that that might be the only person the president can trust.
Well, that may be true, but this is what concerns me, is that the intelligence community is not being honest with the president, the administration, even the director of Central Intelligence. That's what the implication is. Now, to me, that bodes very bad. I mean, that's like you can get into slam dunk situations like the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and we could go kill a couple 100,000 people. For what? For a false statement, for a false issue.
So you believe that the DNC was not hacked by Russia, that it was an inside job, that someone inside the DNC did this to the Democratic Party? You believe that?
Well, no, that's our evidence is it came down locally.
Okay.
So that's the evidence. I mean, it's not a question of saying who did it locally. We don't know. But there are people who are saying certain things that the FBI knows who did it already, and they're not telling the president. And that NSA and FBI together know a lot more than they're telling the president.
Now, CNN is really riding this. And
There you go. We'll leave it at that, I think. Should we get going here in a minute? Oh, I got to fix the, look at that. I got some chat room stuff to fix. I'm on the wrong channel. This is your chance. If you're joining me now, go to discord.me/JupiterColony, and then there's the Unfilter room. His name was Bill Binney. Oh, Seth Rich. Oh, you're talking about something else. I see what you're doing there. Oh, you mean Seth Rich. Oh! All right, so we don't need that anymore. We need to start the show. Oh, I just feel like I need one more song in me before I'm ready to go for some reason. Like, I don't know what's going on. I feel like I need one more really good song. Let's see, what do we got here? That one's not bad. It's not bad. It's not bad. All right, we'll go with this. That's fine. Okay. Okay, yeah, there it is. Oh, yes. Oh, here, I'll play, you know what? We'll get into Oh Nancy. That'll always cheer me up. All right, chat room, please get ready. We're going to start here. We have got ourselves dialed in, ready to go. It is the Unfilter 259 overtime, and it's going to begin right now, right here, right three, right now, in a 3, in a 2, in a 3, 2, 1. Get your mouse cursor off the screen, Chris. Breaking now. The show's not over. It's the overtime. The best time? Overtime time! Patreon.com/unfilter. Thank you to our new patrons this week, Takuni, Alexandra, Yon, Derek, and Luke. You get the epic name readings and the honor of sponsoring this here overtime segment. It's dedicated to you. To you, all of our patrons. Patreon.com/Unfilter. Thank you, guys. And we got a lot to get into today. The overtime is packed. But I feel like we've been making a difference here on the show. We've been making a difference. We're bringing change. We're changing the way the world views Nancy Pelosi. One horrible video at a time. And that's what we've been doing here in the overtime now for weeks. It's really not just Nancy. It's, as you well know if you've listened for a little bit, the documentation of the total and absolute corruption of the establishment corporatist wing of the Democratic Party, which is causing them to constantly lose important elections. Hopefully they're in an upswing right now, because boy, are they a bunch of non-competing bastards at the moment. And I think part of the reason is, well, Nancy Pelosi.
Events were held to focus on the injustices of this tax bill.
So this is Nancy Pelosi out there rallying the troops about the tax bill. And she seems to get mixed up and thinks that Florida's on the West Coast.
Up and down the West Coast, from New York to Florida, members and candidates and people, just the people
That's right, people
turned out. As I say, Tuesday's elections frightened Republicans.
It's fating them, guys.
Speaker Ryan is about to brand them, some of their most vulnerable suburban members, with a huge middle-income tax hike.
Ka-hike, not ka-hike, ka-hike. Not cut-hike, ka-hike.
And in California, I say again, as I have done on a number of occasions, Doug LaMalfa, Tom McClintock,
She says it all the time, guys.
Gary Cohn. What's his title?
All the time.
Whatever it is. Well, whatever it is. He has a big deal title.
Spreader of mistruths on the tax.
But here's one truth he did say.
Oh, is Schumer in the background, by the way.
The moment of truth is here. There's so much to tell. It can be confusing. Just want to focus on a few key points.
Let's keep focusing on other few key points here. Here's Nancy Pelosi giving another rallying talk to the audience, where she has to tell them when to clap. One of my favorites.
I want to acknowledge Larry Temple, the chairman of the LBJ Foundation Board of Trustees, of course, Ambassador Hand and Kathy McGarr for their wonderful leadership. Those are applause lines.
A real good speaker always has to prompt her audience to clap for her.
It's been said of inaugural addresses and the rest. I want to quote Lyndon Baines Johnson's inaugural address.
I'm sorry, did she say Lyndon Bean Johnson? I got to hear that again, because it sounded like she said Lyndon Bean Johnson.
Quote Lyndon Baines Johnson's inaugural address.
I think she did just say Lyndon Bean Johnson.
And he, to me, all of the beautiful expressions of the arts are humorous. Perhaps they will be tonight. Person, as has been said earlier, to receive the Lyndon B. Johnson Liberty and Justice Award.
Could you imagine being at an event, listening to her? You'd have to sit there in the audience struggling to comprehend what she's saying. Got to keep everybody focused. We got to focus on the taxes, not these other scandals.
Where do you come down on this? If Senator Menendez is convicted, should he resign immediately? Blah, 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 blah.
Well, I think that he will appeal if he's convicted, and I don't really want to do what-ifs about him.
So we don't want to have to run through any of those scenarios. We don't want to have to consider anything like that. We might just end up digging ourselves a hole.
President Trump in China. Candidate Trump said that what's happening in China trade was the greatest theft in the history of the world. And yesterday he said our trade deficit with China, which is huge, is not China's fault. You can almost hear the leadership of the Chinese government laughing from China to America. Maybe you can feel it coming through the ground, because if you dig a hole here, you will reach China.
I love it. I love it. I don't want it to go anywhere. Maybe just a moment of silence, though.
My colleagues right now are doing a moment of silence in the House of Representatives chambers. I respect their right to do that, and I myself have participated in many of them, but I can't do this again. I've been to too many moments of silences. I will not be silent.
I haven't attended a moment of silence for a number of years because I think it's so hypocritical. That's all we do. We have a moment of silence, and then we are silent.
It's going to happen again. I don't know where. I don't know when.
This is Tom Perez, the piece of shit chairman of the DNC. You think maybe the talking memo went out? The points went out? Hey, everybody, say this.
But we will get the same thoughts and prayers response from the Republicans.
Our thoughts and prayers are with all the families. But, you know, I, like many Americans, I'm tired of the thoughts and prayers.
But I do think you're seeing the same pattern play out here. Thoughts and prayers from Congress, a little nibble of interest at legislative action.
Our thoughts and prayers are not enough.
We have these moments of silence, and certainly we want to be prayerful and respectful in a moment of silence. But people are impatient of that. They want action.
How does something like this begin to spread, do you suppose? Is it a memo that goes out? Is there an email list? Or does one of the distinguished members of the pack make a bold statement and then all of the little lemmings follow it? And that's the message they go with until the next leader makes a statement. I'm inclined to think it's the latter, but who really knows? If anybody out there in media has any insights, let me know. Let me know. So we talked about Jeff Sessions earlier in the show and his recent testimony, and I wanted to give you a little taste of one of the more interesting exchanges, which, I gotta say, there were not many of these, and this was maybe one of the best.
Reclaim my time. Let's talk about your contacts with a...
Ooh, we'll stop right there. Yes, he did. He said reclaiming my time. He did it.
Reclaim my time. Let's talk...
Did you hear it? He went really fast. He didn't really make like a thing.
Reclaiming my time.
But he did it fast.
Reclaim my time. Let's talk about your contacts with a foreign power. So last year, how many interactions did you have with Russian government official Sergei Kislyak? I just need a number. Is it 3?
Well, of all foreign officials or just...
Russian government official, Ambassador Sergei Kislyak, last year, how many interactions did you have with him?
I spoke at the Republican convention. I came off the platform and people were there and we chatted a moment, had an encounter. Couple of months later, I believe in September, he asked for a meeting, and I provided that. I met with over approximately 25 ambassadors last year, and I had that same day as, well, excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Sessions. Thank you. Well, as Attorney General, you have a security clearance, correct?
Yes.
And to get that security clearance, you submitted a security clearance application, also known as an SF-86 form, correct?
That's correct.
I submitted such a form when I served on active duty in the U.S. Air Force. And the you to certify under penalty of perjury that the information submitted was true, complete, and correct to the best of your knowledge. You certified your security clearance form, correct?
That is correct.
I'm going to, on the video screen, show you a question from that form, and it says, have you or any of your immediate family in the past 7 years had any contact with a foreign government, its establishment, such as embassy, consulate, agency, military service, intelligence, or security service, etc., or as representatives, whether inside or outside the U.S.?
So essentially, when Sessions got clearance, I don't know if this is, in case your ADD monster kicked in, when Sessions applied for his security clearance to be the Attorney General, he had to answer a question saying, did you have any contact with these foreign agents in the last 7 years? So we're now going way beyond the campaign.
The answer that you gave was no. What you just told us under oath was exactly the opposite. So I'm going to ask you, Mr. Sessions, were you lying then when you filled out the form, or are you lying now?
What I was told by my executive assistant when we did this form earlier, and then again when I was nominated for Attorney General, that the FBI authority says members of Congress and effectively government officials meeting people on an official basis, you were not required to.
So his argument is these run-ins were not like official run-ins; they weren't real meetings, and so he didn't disclaim them. I'm going to jump ahead just a minute.
Says you get to answer any differently because you're a U.S. senator rather than, say, a young police officer. Isn't that right?
Well,
nothing in that question authorizes you to answer any differently. Isn't that right?
I would say that nobody at the FBI or any other place, to my knowledge, said you left that blank. Surely you've met with some foreign officials in the last 7 years. I've not had any private business dealings or any things of that nature. My contacts would be in the normal course of
let me ask you
senatorial business.
Let me ask you one of your interactions.
So I thought that was a reasonable answer.
You said under oath today that you had a meeting with Ambassador Kislyak of under an hour. That's pretty long. Was it more than 50 minutes?
I doubt it was 50 minutes, but
45?
it may have been 45, 50 minutes.
All right. Did you discuss campaign-related items such as Ukraine with the ambassador?
Well, that's not campaign-related.
Oh, that's an interesting answer, isn't it? And I thought he was going to leave it right there.
All right. I'm going to ask you two simple questions.
Yes, we did talk about Ukraine. We actually had an argument about the Ukraine because the day before, the Ukrainian ambassador was in my office making his case against Russia, and I raised those issues with Mr. Kislyak, and as I referred to it, I think, the classic, we did nothing wrong.
I'm glad you're very animated.
Did everything wrong. That was his
Let me
case.
ask you two simple questions, because in a sense you've already answered it. You did have communications with the Russians last year, isn't that right?
Repeat that.
You did have communications with the Russians last year, isn't that right? Just yes or no?
I had a meeting with the Russian ambassador, yes.
Great. That's exactly the opposite answer you gave under oath to U.S. Senate. So again, either you're lying to U.S. Senate or you're lying to U.S. House of Representatives.
Well,
you know, I can see both. I can see both perspectives here. He's got him on a technicality, and Sessions is like, listen, I talk to these guys as a daily part of my job.
The time of the gentleman has expired. The witness can answer any further if he chooses to.
I won't repeat it, Mr. Chairman, but I hope the congressman knows, and I hope all of you know, that my answer to that question, I did not meet with the Russians, was explicitly responding to the shocking suggestion that I, as a surrogate, was meeting on a continuing basis with Russian officials, and the implication was to impact the campaign in some sort of nefarious way. And all I did was meet in my office with the ambassador, which we didn't discuss anything like that. So I just want to say I appreciate the congressman's right. I guess he can say it's free speech. He can't be sued here. So that's just my response, and I'm sorry that that's my response.
That's my response, he ends it with. And then he says, I'm sorry again. I don't know. That was odd. Speaking of the Department of Justice and Jeff Sessions, the Department of Justice is putting some cold water on AT&T's big plans.
CBS News has learned the Justice Department is pushing AT&T to sell CNN as part of its merger with Time Warner. The $85 billion deal needs approval from antitrust regulators. But the focus on CNN is raising concern about political interference. President Trump has repeatedly bashed the cable channel.
Fake news. CNN, fake. You are fake news.
I like real news, not fake news. You're fake news.
Juliana Goldman is in Washington with what's at stake. Juliana, good morning.
Good morning. Well, during the campaign, President Trump promised to stop the merger on antitrust grounds, saying that it's too much concentration of power in the hands of too few. But a person familiar with the matter told CBS News that White House officials have made it clear to AT&T on multiple occasions that they're dissatisfied with CNN. And in one case, sources say that in January, President-elect Trump raised the matter directly with AT&T CEO Randall Stephenson during a meeting at Trump Tower. Now, the White House denies involvement in the negotiations, and the Justice Department says that AT&T itself offered to divest CNN and that the government flatly rejected it. But AT&T CEO said he never offered to sell CNN and has no intention of doing so. So sources say AT&T is preparing to take the administration to court, arguing that the deal doesn't pose any competition violations. Now, Gail, Democrats in Congress even who are opposed to the merger, like Al Franken, the senator from Minnesota, say that if the Trump administration is pressuring AT&T to divest CNN, it would be a disturbing development.
All right, a lot of people feel that way. Thank you very much, Juliana.
Oh yeah, a lot of people really, really want poor AT&T to be able to merge with Time Warner. I really want to have my ISPs and my media companies come together. A lot of people are pulling for that. I just wish that goddamn Trump would let more of these companies become monopolies, damn it. Because then we could be in beautiful situations like we are with the Equifax hack. Just gorgeous.
Well, current and former executives for both Yahoo and Equifax answered questions on Capitol Hill today. The companies were called in because they suffered two of the largest data breaches in history, leaving customers' information exposed for reasons that have yet to be discovered. Former Yahoo CEO Marissa Mayer and former Equifax CEO Richard Smith apologized for the hacks, while the new company heads were grilled over big-picture issues regarding customer data. Here's one exchange that stood out between Colorado Republican Cory Gardner and Equifax's interim chief executive.
Mr. Barros, can you tell me who owns the information that you provide to your clients, customers?
Sorry. According to the existing regulatory framework, we own the information.
There you go. There you go. There it is. How do you like that? That information they're talking about is all of the shit to do with your credit report and every ancillary bit of monitoring they do to get that information too. Health information, credit information, what you buy at the grocery store with your loyalty card information, the data they can buy off of your carrier. They collect all of it, and they own it, and you don't get to own any of it. It's their data, and it's all about you. It's all about you, and then they let it get stolen because they're sloppy.
Sorry. According to the existing regulatory framework, we own the information.
Does a consumer have any ability to say, I don't want you to have that information?
They have the opportunity today to unlock and unlock their file and therefore not allow anyone to have access to it.
That is such a bullshit answer. That is such a... So you, if you are proactive enough, can get your shit deactivated. You can get your shit locked up, and that way they can't modify it, but they can still have whatever the hell they collect.
But do I have an ability to say, I don't want Equifax to have any information about me?
I understand. This is what I said. I understand that from the regulatory framework that we have today, the consumer cannot exit out of the file.
So the answer is no. So I, as a consumer, apply for a credit card or a bank loan. That institution then provides it to you, and I have no ability to stop that from happening.
You can lock and unlock your file.
So the answer is no, I can't stop that. And the answer is no, I can't prevent you from getting it. So whose information is this? Is it your file, or is it my file, or is it your file?
What about Google? What about Facebook?
Whose file is it?
According to the regulatory perspective, I have the information.
So it's your file, not my file. So all the information about me, all the consumer information I produce, all the data, everything that I own that defines my life, I have no control over that. Is that correct? Other than you've got it, and I can tell you whether I want you to give it or sell it to somebody else.
This is how the industry framework.
I get it. I get it. Do you think it's right though?
I think it's not my perspective to say it's right or wrong. This is the regulatory perspective.
It's my perspective to make money off of it. That's what my perspective is. It's my perspective to abuse it, and it's my perspective to defer any kind of. Can't sue them, right? Defer any kind of legal action based on from consumers because it's their data. You gonna sue them for losing their own data? I don't think so. But it's not just Equifax. What about Google? What about Facebook? You see, with the social media networks, there's something even more insidious there. I'll tell you what, guys, if I didn't do these shows, I don't think I'd have any online social media accounts. I mean, unless you count Reddit. I'd probably have a Reddit account. But I don't think I'd be on Facebook or Twitter because they're designed to exploit a flaw in our minds.
Entrepreneur Sean Parker says he's not sure how much Facebook is benefiting society. Parker was the founding president of Facebook when the company started over a decade ago. He recently made some very jarring comments about social media exploiting the vulnerabilities in human psychology during a conversation with Axios. Here's what he had to say.
You know, if the thought process that went into building these applications, Facebook being the first of them to really understand it, that thought process was all about how do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible. And that means that we need to sort of give you a little dopamine hit every once in a while because someone liked or commented on a photo or a post or whatever. And that's going to get you to contribute more content, and that's going to get you, you know, more likes and comments. I mean, it's a social validation feedback loop that it's like it's exactly the kind of thing that a hacker like myself would come up with, because you're exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology. And I think that the inventors, creators, you know, and it's me, it's Mark, it's Kevin Systrom at Instagram, it's all of these people, understood this consciously, and we did it anyway.
All right, let me just close my Facebook page right.
Yes, that's the Napster guy, and he had some involvement with early Facebook, and he's telling you something you already knew. It's just not something we like to think about very much. And then you think about the fact that they own that data. Well, I don't like that very much. I don't like that very much at all. Speaking of not liking something, I got a clip here from an author who stopped by Fox Business to talk about the election night meltdown that Hillary Clinton had. This has been a rumor that's been going around since election night, that she threw plates, she totally freaked out, which understandably, I mean, she's been kind of planning for that for a while. And this guy wrote a book on it, and he's putting it out soon.
So we talked to, we'll never, never, ever chat with him again. Doug Weed, good to have you, my friend.
Thank you. And they may lose their jobs.
And they may lose their jobs at all points. You know who this is. I do want to get in that. I do want to get into high expectations here because they certainly worked against Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, they did.
And in this case, they could be working against this administration, setting a bar like get tax cuts done by August, signed, sealed, even delivered. What do you think of that?
Yeah, but they have to move, as you know, historically, because the party that's out of power almost always picks up seat. It's just a rule. Right. It's uncanny. And politicians come along and think, oh, I'll beat it. But Reagan couldn't beat it. Obama couldn't beat it.
I think if they lose this August deadline thing, and if they don't get them done this year, they're going to have a horrible midterm election.
I agree with you. And then there's the media. The media is going to say, we lost the last election. We're not going to lose this election.
You mentioned the media and the role it plays and how much it leans left. I think most journalists are liberal-leaning. They try not, they say, to espouse that and show in their program, but they do. But you got inside this because a mindset had developed that everyone thought Hillary Clinton would win. The only issue election night was what time she would come out. But how did you get this other stuff about the craziness going on in her camp that night?
Yeah.
The breaking glass, the shouting, was all that true?
It was true. First I started hearing the stories, and I was checking the sources. Some of them are Secret Service, they're different sources. And then I went to people who'd voted for Hillary, who loved Hillary, who'd worked for her and Bill over a period of decades.
And they were seeing it all kind of unravel.
I'd say, could this be possible? They said, absolutely. They said she's like a light switch both ways. Said she may be very upset, and she's suddenly calm.
She didn't come out that night. John Podesta did.
She was deeply upset.
Tell me what was going on.
She was hurt. She was disturbed. She was broken. There were tears. There was shouting. There was shattering glass. They said that former President Bill Clinton was just totally mute, didn't open his mouth, just totally quiet and respectful. And looking back on it that night, you'll remember Ed Rendell came on the television and people said, how's she doing? He said, she's angry. I didn't notice that until I went back and reviewed some of the tapes and saw that.
Who was she angry at?
I think she's angry because of what happened. of what happened. I mean, she outspent him 8-1 if you count the soft money. She outstaffed him 5-1. She had 960,000 people on the ground with her ground game. She had 249 newspapers endorse her against 19 of his, and he had only one thing, which was $1 billion worth of earned media.
You know what's interesting is he doesn't mention the superdelegates. Now, he makes a point here about why Donald Trump, talking off the cuff, worked so well for Donald Trump.
For this great book, and it's going to be a bestseller. I don't care if you're left or right on this, but you had said that there were passion in his crowds, none in hers. I remember you and I talking about that months before the campaign.
Yeah, we were talking about it the entire run-up to the election.
And that came back to hurt her. The reading a cute card, you know, the same old lines, even down the same jokes. It got old.
You could see it in the numbers. And Donald Trump stayed on message. And when I would talk to people...
And he was topical. He was almost like a stand-up comedian. He'd keep it like Johnny Carson.
All the oxygen out of the air. And I told people in Trump Tower, I said, you're killing him. He's off message. They said, no, he's not off message. I said, what do you mean? He's off message. They said, no, he's got two messages. The first one is make America great again. And the second one is I'm not a politician. So when he was off message, he was on message.
There it is. There it is. And that's why it still kind of works for him even today. Because the people are so pissed at the situation, at the runaway federal government, that they'll just vote anybody in who isn't part of the establishment. And that's why Trump won. That's why Bernie would have won, I think. Now, there is one individual on this show that we play that is more controversial than most. It's not Nancy Pelosi. It's not even Donald Trump. It's Nigel Farage, and I want to play this clip on the show, even though I always get a ton of crap for it, because he lays out some of the George Soros shenanigans, which we always think about it here in the United States as the funding for certain types of protesters or different movements inside the U.S., but the thing about the Open Society Foundation is it's really all over the world, and the U.S. is just part of its overall strategy.
Mr. Farage, 2.5 minutes.
Thank you. As Mr. Moscovici said at the start of this, the leak of all these papers and lists of people with offshore holdings has come...
Sorry, I probably should have set this up. The papers he's referring to right here are the Panama Papers.
...about because of the Society of Investigative Journalists. But what's not been said this morning, and I think is relevant, is that the funding of these investigations came from one George Soros. Now, I say this at a time, I'm going to come back to so what, and it may have some personal interest for you as well. I say this at a time when the use of money...
Oh, yeah, sorry, the Paradise Papers. Yes, not the Panama Papers. I want to play this section for you because you might have been distracted by me calling it the Panama Papers, because this is really fun. Somebody shouts, when he says it's funded by George Soros, somebody in the crowd shouts, "Who cares?" And of course, it turns out there's a very good reason why this guy shouted that, and it comes all back full circle.
George Soros. Now, I say this at a time, I'm going to come back to so what.
Yeah, he yells, "So what?" And so you'll find out why he said that.
And it may have some personal interest for you as well. I say this at a time when the use of money and the influence it may have had on the Brexit result or the Trump election has reached a level of virtual hysteria. Just last week, the Electoral Commission in the UK launched an investigation to find out whether the Leave campaign took offshore money or Russian money. This came about as a result of questions asked in the House of Commons by one Ben Bradshaw, somebody linked to an organisation called Open Society. I just wonder, when we're talking about offshore money, when we're talking about political subversion, when we're talking about collusion, I wonder whether we're looking in the wrong place. And I say that because George Soros recently gave Open Society, his organisation, which of course campaigns for free movement of peoples and supports supranational structures like the European Union, he recently gave it $18 billion. And his influence here and in Brussels is truly extraordinary. Open Society boast that they had 42 meetings last year with the European Commission. They've even published a book of reliable friends in the European Parliament. And there are 226 names on that list, including yours, sir. I thought you'd find this interesting.
Uh-oh.
We even had last week Mr. Verhofstadt lobbying on behalf of Mr. Soros.
He's just sitting there chilling, just like, what are you doing, asshole? He just doesn't give a fuck. Look at that guy's face. It's too good. It's too good.
At the Conference of Presidents in a battle that is going on with Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister of Hungary. If we're going to have a debate and we're going to talk about full political and financial transparency, well, let's do it. So I should be writing today to all 226 of you, asking some pretty fair questions. Have you ever received funds, directly or indirectly, from Open Society? How many of their events have you attended? Could you please give us a list of the meetings of all the representatives, including George Soros yourself? And I think this Parliament should now set up a special committee to look into all of this. And I say that because I fear we could be looking at the biggest level of international political collusion in history.
There you go. So there's a little additional information on George Soros's fun across the pond as well. Now, if you want to talk about showing me the money, let's come back here to the States. Let's see how much the U.S.'s years and years and years of war in Afghanistan and Iraq and Libya and Syria, how much are they costing the individual U.S. taxpayer?
It's been calculated that by the end of this year, the US will have spent a total of $5.6 trillion on wars in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and in Syria. That's triple what the Pentagon says it spent.
That's just since 9/11, of course.
And American universities worked out that it means the average US taxpayer has actually footed nearly $24,000 to pay for their country's lengthy war on terror.
Yes, everybody! $24,000 each of us individually owe $24,000 towards all this shenanigans.
And the costs look set to increase too, with NATO now planning to put more troops on the ground in Afghanistan too.
We have decided to increase the number of troops. The current level is around 13,000.
Yes.
The new level will be around 16,000.
We have fought now for 16 years there nonstop.
Let's stop right there. So there you go. Around $25,000. They could be adding, Trump may add as much as $7,000 to that one. Now, there's going to be a lot of people upset about that. You know, you got big tax cut stuff coming up. You got a lot of things happening in well, just every single day, the news around Trump. A lot of people have things to say about Trump these days. And you might, as a Trump supporter out there, and I'm only talking to the Trump supporters, the rest of you, just take a moment, because the Trump supporters need a little encouragement right now, because everybody else is feeling fired up. So Trump supporters, I'm going to leave you with some talking points on how you can always win the argument when somebody starts saying something negative against Trump. I present you the ultimate trump card.
Why do you think there is this negative perception, especially even among some within the Christian community? What do you think lends itself to that?
Well, part of it is because he's still got rough language.
Yeah.
You know, he still has some of the Queen's character in his character. But what I say to people, I said, listen, if you have a problem with someone with rough language, then you're going to have a problem with Jesus. Because he spoke to the Pharisees and Sadducees and said, you vipers, you snakes.
There you go. You got a problem with Trump? Then you got a problem with Jesus.
I said, listen, if you have a problem with someone with rough language, then you're going to have a problem with Jesus. Because he spoke to the Pharisees and Sadducees and said, you vipers, you snakes.
Yeah.
And he referred to Herod as a fox.
Yeah, yeah.
And then there's the account of the woman he called a dog.
Oh, there you go. Problem solved. Makes sense to me. Go ahead, run with that. See how that does for you. All right. Well, with that bit of wisdom, I think I'm just going to have to leave you for the night. Hopefully you've got enough overtime in your system to get through till next week's episode. I do hope you can join us live. Always love to see more people join us live. Discord.me/Jupiter Colony for the chat room, the Unfiltered dedicated channel, JupiterBroadcasting.com/calendar for the live time, and of course, Patreon.com/Unfilter to make all of this possible. And this here frickin' segment was dedicated to our patrons. Thank you for joining us. And remember, Trump is just like Jesus. Same thing, guys.
Then you're going to have a problem with Jesus. problem with someone with rough language, then you're going to have a problem with Jesus. Because he spoke to the Pharisees and Sadducees and said, you vipers, you snakes.
Yeah.
He referred to Herod as a fox. Rough language, then you're going to have a problem with Jesus. Because he spoke to the Pharisees and Sadducees and said, you vipers, you snakes.
Yeah.
He referred to Herod as a fox.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there's the account of the woman he called a dog. So, I mean, you know, if you want to find offense, you'll find offense.
Yeah.
And anything. But the thing about Donald Trump, and I think which alludes to part of the prophecy that God gave to him, is that he's a man of his word. He says what he means and he means what he says. Well, what character does that imitate? Who is that? God.
Yeah.
God says what he means and he means what he says.
Yeah.
So I believe that God saw in the character of Donald Trump a fighter, one that will stand into the face of the enemy. Because really and truly, the church has had its butt kicked the last 100 years, I'd say, or 75 years. We really have. When you look at the situation of this country morally, where it has fallen to, God wasn't going to have some mamsy-whamsy, love and peace kind of a president to get the job done. He had to get, Mike Tyson.
Don't turn that fucking cheek. Don't you dare turn that fucking cheek.
Man, he had to bring somebody who was going to do a 1-2
That's
punch.
right.
And not afraid to.
That's right. Don't turn that cheek.
Take the enemy to his own fight.
Fuck
and
that
that
cheek.
Is the character film.
You gotta fuck that cheek. Do not for a second turn that cheek. Because we got Jesus up in here. It's God.
Yes. Well, what character does that imitate?
God.
Who is that?
God.
God.
It's God.
God says what he means, and he means what he says.
Oh, it's God. Except for the Bible is extremely complex and convoluted, and I would say he often doesn't say what he means, but that's just...
Want to find offense, you'll find offense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find offense. I actually found offense, so...
And that, people, is what grinds my gears. Tom?
All right, so now we have ourselves a few moments together, just you and me. No more overtime. Chase is a few moments away. I just really, I don't know, something about that just really got me fired up. Got me fired up, you guys. Let's see here. What else should we play for you guys? This is interesting. This is one that I'm going to make reference to in the show, but I don't think will actually be in the show, so this would be useful.
On the other side of the Capitol, senators focused on President Trump's power to launch a nuclear war. Nick Schifrin reports on this critical chain of command.
In a world full of threats, Senate Democrats today asked whether the biggest threat is in the White House.
Donald Trump can launch nuclear codes just as easily as he can use his Twitter account.
The United States' nuclear command structure was...
You think that's true? I mean, all other things being equal, do you think it's as easy for Donald Trump to tweet as it is for him to launch nukes? Something tells me there's a few more steps in that process. I mean, what do I know? I've never launched a nuke, but I have tweeted.
Born out of the Cold War.
The Soviets continue to develop and deploy strategic offensive nuclear forces.
Pentagon videos describe the Soviet threat as imminent. The president needed to be able to launch nuclear weapons quickly in case the U.S. was being attacked. Tennessee Republican Bob Corker.
This process means the president has the sole authority to give that order.
Today, the threat comes from North Korean intercontinental ballistic missiles. U.S. intelligence predicts they could soon carry a nuclear warhead. President Trump has threatened preventive war.
They will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen. Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime.
Many Americans share my fear that the president's bombastic words could turn into nuclear reality.
The president has the sole authority to launch nuclear weapons, but that doesn't mean he can launch a weapon for no reason whenever he wants, said Duke professor Peter Feaver, who's studied nuclear command for 30 years.
Where the military wakes up the president and warns him that there is about to be an attack or that we're experiencing attack, he alone would have the authority to make the decision, But in the other context, where the president's waking up the military, maybe in an extreme funk, saying, I'm angry and I want something done, in that setting, he requires the cooperation of a lot of people.
That cooperation
Let's cut that short.
Wouldn't be forthcoming if his order were illegal, said retired General Robert Kaler, the former head of U.S. Strategic Command.
The United States military doesn't blindly follow orders. A presidential order to employ U.S. nuclear weapons must be legal.
So he is literally saying the United States military has the option to refuse an order from the president to launch nukes. They don't have to follow his orders.
The basic legal principles of military necessity, distinction, and proportionality apply to nuclear weapons just as they do to every other weapon.
Of course they do. In fact, they probably apply a little bit more, if that's such a thing.
Maryland Democrat Ben Cardin.
You believe that because of legalities, you retain that decision to disobey the commander-in-chief?
Yes.
So either the politicians that have caused this hearing, that started this thing, have no fucking idea how their own government works for one of the most critical functions, the ability to start a war that would destroy our planet. So either the members of Congress have no fucking idea how this works, they're stupid, or they're playing politics. And that's super frustrating. That makes me extremely angry because they're freaking out the American public. They're denigrating the power of the office of the president. They're slandering the sitting president. And it's all for something that they know has a built-in mechanism to prevent. That, or they're fucking stupid. I'm not sure which one it is. Really.
If there is an illegal order presented to the military is obligated to refuse to follow it.
Today's hearing was called by Senate Republicans, but many of them urged extreme caution. They said the U.S.'s adversaries needed to understand the president is still the sole person able and is still willing to use nuclear weapons.
We cannot have a bunch of bunker lawyers that basically, or activists up and down the chain who decide that they're going to disobey any order that they disagree with.
Pyongyang needs to understand that they are dealing with a person who's a commander-in-chief right now who is very focused on defending this country, and he will do what is necessary to defend this country.
Democrats have introduced legislation that would limit the president's nuclear authority. Some today question whether sound legal advice would prevail in a nuclear weapons discussion. Massachusetts Democrat Ed Markey questioned whether presidential advisors, current and former generals, could constrain the president.
I don't think we should be relying upon a group of individuals to be resisting an illegal order when they have all pretty much been hired by the president.
A short time ago, an American airplane dropped one bomb on Hiroshima.
Since President Harry Truman became the only person ever to have ordered a nuclear strike, U.S. law said only a president should carry the nuclear responsibility. But today, that singular authority is being questioned. For the PBS NewsHour.
Yeah, you know what? Discord nails it. That's the hard part. Is sometimes they're stupid, sometimes they're deceitful, sometimes they're stupid and deceitful. So that's why it's hard to really nail it down. But I thought that was an interesting piece. So I'm going to copy this. I want to move this in case this comes up. I want to put this in a different folder here. Anyways, I noticed something. So last week I talked a lot about Donna Brazile. And I'm not some Donna Brazile fan. But where is this file here? Where do I have this? Oh boy, I have so much more stuff. Look at all this stuff I have here. So this is Donna Brazile. She took
I want to welcome back Donna Brazile. The book is called Hacks, The Inside Story.
So she took, this is hours of call. She took an hour-long call.
But I'm a LSU type. I'm going to
Let's see here.
Any other place.
Hi. Let me preface what I'm saying. I think you're a Democrat hack, but I love you. I love the fact that you have come out and said that something that...
Now look at this face she's making. Isn't that interesting? She won't break. This guy, yeah, I've watched this whole thing, this 50 minutes of fucking Donna Brazile, because I do this for you guys. This is what I do right here, is I watch this shit in case there's anything at all that might be fucking interesting on C-SPAN. And the one thing that really stood out to me about this moment here, this is 21 minutes and 36 seconds into her 50-minute long Q&A. And this guy's going to say some shit, and she won't give a single tell. She gets this tough woman expression on her face, and it don't crack.
Everybody thought, you want to get the Clintons off the playing field. And, you were the one that brought up the Willie Horton thing. And
can I answer you now, my friend?
She's very smooth. She obviously does not like this guy.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
You see, she's quick, too. She corrects him while she's still figuring out what she's going to say. So if you think about the way your mind works, while she's taking a breath in, she's thinking about what the fuck am I going to say to this guy? And while she's busy thinking what the fuck am I going to say to this guy, she can also still say yes, ma'am, and correct him. Now, this is important. That means she has the ability to think about a narrative and still have a general executive override that governs what comes out of her mouth. Now, the reason why I say that is because this was what makes a good politician. You can spin a narrative in your mind and you can still talk at the same time. And that's what makes the difference between like a Trump liar, who you can tell when he's lying right on his face, and a Clinton or a Donna Brazile liar, where they're able, or an Obama liar. Let's go Obama, because you can tell when Hillary's lying, can't you? You know when Hillary's lying, but you don't know when Barry's lying. Same with Donna. She's got more tells than Barry does. Barry's the best, but her and Barry are in a class of their own.
I'm a LSU type.
So I'm going to jump ahead.
You have a right to vote. You have a right.
Let me preface what I'm saying. I think you're a Democrat hack, but I love you. I love the fact that you have come out and said that something that everybody thought, you want to get the Clintons off the playing field.
Not a crack. Not a crack.
And, you were the one that brought up the Willie Horton thing. And
can I answer you now, my friend?
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. All right, Boo.
God, she's good.
Here's Donna 101.
Oh, here she goes.
I wanted more than any American, probably just like Bill Clinton, just like others, I wanted to win in 2016. I wanted Hillary Clinton to be president of the United States. Had she won, I probably still would have continued my activism. I am a grassroots activist. I've been involved in politics since the age of 9. Steve mentioned Al Gore, but I've worked on a lot of presidential campaigns, senatorial, congressional campaigns, state and local campaigns.
So she's also able to keep present facts in the front of her mind. So she's able to keep all of the host names in her mind and give reference to them while she talks. She also remembers what they mentioned. So she remembers, because this happened, by the way, 20 minutes earlier in this file. He mentioned some of her background. She remembers what that guy said about her 20 minutes ago. Now, when you look at Hillary Clinton and Nancy Pelosi and Donald Trump, they're nowhere near this caliber. They're nowhere near this caliber.
So, yes, you could call me a hack, but last year the country was hacked.
Oh, she's getting a book plug in.
And that's why I selected the title of this book. I do believe, David, that whenever there's injustice in society, whenever there are people who are being harmed.
So these are the real politicians behind the scenes, the ones that are really making things happen. The ones you see are ugly actors. It's a really interesting 50 minutes of Donna Brazile because, maybe I'm looking more into it than I should, but I'm really impressed. I'm very impressed with what I see with her. Did you see that RT had to register as a foreign agent? Maybe reports like this.
Over 40 years after the end of the Vietnam War, and the U.S. has released a series of new videos of its military operations in that country. Some of the footage showing aircraft dropping phosphorus bombs, napalm as well, during the bombing campaign in northern Vietnam. The video is filmed in 1965, some 10 years after the actual start of the Vietnam War.
Wow.
During all of that, America did face criticism for its use of chemical and biological weapons, but Vietnam also became a testing ground for all sorts of different weapons.
Woo, good, good. All right, so there's more in the overtime sync if you want to grab that. Hey, buddy. Look at that. Look at that. According to Glimpse, dude, you're still on your way.
All right, cool.
Hey, look at you with the beard action. I like it a lot. I think that looks good. All right. Well, I was just sitting here shooting the shit with the chat room, so good timing, actually.
High-speed chase on the way here.
What? A high-speed chase? Tell me more.
Well, you know when cops are trying to chase down somebody.
Yeah.
Well, there are 4 units in pursuit of a Kia Spectra.
Really?
Silver,
No kidding.
Up near exit 220.
No, 220,
now-
220.
And now they're up at College Way, which I think they're on the outskirts of Bellingham. I set up a new remote scanning system for Como.
Yeah.
And I have a login. So I was seeing all these units pass by me on the way up here. And I was like, oh, shit, I got a freaking scanner. So I fired that sucker up.
Totally.
Dialed in the Washington State Patrol.
Yep.
And I was getting real life.
I love the scanner. Just when something's going on, I'm like, what's going on? I love that. I love it.
Yeah, I decided that I'm participating in the No Shave Movember thing.
Good for you. Oh, that's me. If you want, you could. I have another persona you could pop over to, or Discord's installed on the local machine too.
Oh, you're in the browser. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Are we doing a show next Wednesday?
Is next Wednesday the day before Thanksgiving?
Yes.
Kind of want to say. So people have asked me, and I don't know. I can't remember why it was that somebody said I should. I can't remember.
Well, is it because that's the day that allegedly the FCC is going to vote to kill net neutrality? You mean that's that day?
Oh. Why do you ask? Would it be easy or not?
I'm indifferent. I can do it or whatever.
I'm inclined to say we should do it just because we're probably going to have to take some time off around Christmas and New Year's.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Oh, that's embarrassing. That just happened.
By the way, I saw you were trying to log into the Patreon, so I
that was Ange.
Oh, that was Ange.
It was Ange.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know. It's that new thing is really annoying.
Well, I mean, it helps keeps.
Fuck that, dude. No, you know what we need to do is just get Authy or two-factor. This email
I know,
stuff.
but then I can't. Yeah, I know.
No, you could.
That's right. I could. You're right.
The email is the worst kind of two-factor because you know what the first thing is somebody hacks when they go after you is your email account. Yeah, that's the first thing that changes. So you always want to protect your email account.
Today's note brought to you by Chris Fisher of the Captain Obvious Institute.
While you're laughing, the hackers are dropping malware into your system.
So think about that, okay? So I want you to think about that. You like that?
Oh my God, I got to verify this crap again. Why?
You got to get in that mail sack, dude. You got to get in that mail sack.
For America.
Why you laughing? Let's see. How does this sound when I do this here? Let's see here.
Reclaiming my time.
Yeah, it's clipping a little bit.
While you're laughing, the hackers are dropping malware into your system.
Oh, I see what happened. At 33 minutes ago, I lost my network connection. That's what happened. Or it was at some point.
You remember we used to do this, dude?
I haven't heard this in ages.
Yeah, I figured it'd be good to bring it back.
A little retro. I like it.
Unfiltered. It's $2.59. It's Unfiltered $2.59. Went down to Alki Beach on Friday.
Oh, you went? Oh, and you didn't want to come by the station.
Well, it was for a wedding, so it was in the evening. Gosh, that's a nice area down there.
It is very nice. That's why those homes are $1 million homes. Damn it! I got to get into the Patreon.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll get it in the next 2 seconds, right?
Yeah. I'll have to restart my phone.
Damn it.
Oh yeah.
I might be able to. Wait, if I.
Yeah, you should be able to approve it.
If I go in there and approve it.
All right, did you just stare at your phone? Hey, since I'm bearded, will it work? So where's the Touch ID on that thing?
Yeah. Well, I'm.
Where's the fallback?
I've been just pressing my finger against the screen and nothing's been happening.
Oh, it doesn't have Force Touch either? Man. It seems like that's a stripped down
Do I not have my JB account on this son of a gun?
Wow.
I guess I don't.
Just wow. Just
a DuckTales. Whoa.
But yeah, doing the beard thing.
Yeah, you are.
I am.
Good for you.
Well, just maybe this month. The jury's still out from the wife unit.
Oh yeah, really?
She's finally home, by the way.
Is she waiting for further growth or?
No, she's
not. Have initial responses been bad?
Well, she says it makes me look older.
I don't know about that.
You don't?
I don't know.
Well,
I don't know. I feel like that used to be the case for beards, but I don't feel like it's the case for beards
Did you or
anymore.
did you not approve? Or do
Oh
you?
well, I don't have my
you don't?
JB. I
Okay.
could set it up. On
No,
here,
no, no, no. I just wanted to know if you did or not.
But then I thought you were rebooting your. Is that
I did.
The next i6P?
This is the Pixel.
Oh, you do have the Pixel.
I
You
have
have
the
the
Pixel
Pixel
XL.
1.
Yeah,
Right,
first
yeah,
one.
yeah. What do you think? Are you?
I like my headphone jack.
Are you?
Don't take it away. What?
So you're not even tempted by the new ones, huh?
No.
Really?
No.
Jeez, are you worried though, as a headphone jack user, that you are a dying breed?
No.
You think there's going to be a resurgence of the headphone jack?
Well, sure. Absolutely.
Boy, that's.
I mean,
that is
remember,
some fucking...
remember the first small mini smartphones, the first GSF phones, like the Sony Ericssons that had the attachment to give yourself a headphone jack.
Yeah. Well, the first iPhone did too.
Yeah. So I mean, it's gonna come. It's gonna come back,
dude.
It always does.
I am sorry to say, I really wish. I mean, I 100% wish you were right, but I completely disagree. Unfortunately, because I think the business incentives are too strong. Because Google can sell headphones, Apple can sell headphones. You know, there's the business incentives are too. So can I just do it from here?
Yeah.
Okay, I just verified you.
All right, let's see if this works now.
We've successfully verified your other device, it says.
And I'm in.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah. All
right. So I could there you go. So I can do that if you need. Yeah, I like it. Do you want to see it? It's nice.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, here. I'll
well, let me see if I can unlock it first.
Yeah, I bet that's gonna work. My arse. You know what I think I like?
Just opened it.
You know what I think? You know what I like the most about?
Wow, that's a really.
It's a nice screen.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a good screen.
Well, it's OLED. This is the first iPhone on OLED.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and they've done a really good job with it.
Why is there a crack in the corner?
Damn it!
Sorry. Did your heart just have a little flutter?
Well, I'm like, shit, I thought I just fondled that thing. I didn't see any
God,
cracks.
This is.
Yeah, so I'm on the annual program.
Is pretty.
So I just get the upgrade, so I didn't have to go out and spend $1,000.
This is almost like too pretty.
It is very pretty. I have a leather case on the way for it.
Wow,
I like it. You know, it reminds me a lot of the Nexus line and stuff, but I do like it. I do like it quite a bit, and it is very fast, and I'll give it that. And the camera's very good. All
right,
that shit.
So let's say I go into Weather Underground. Do I get out by swiping up, basically?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. That's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all gestures now. It's all gestures, dude. It's all about... And if you do up and over, like an upside down L, if you do up over, it'll launch the multitask switcher real quick.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right, this is pretty.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, it's nice. So a couple of things I like about Face ID that I didn't think I'd like.
Yeah, go
ahead. Yeah, that's the app that hasn't been updated in
and it still works.
10 years on the iPhone. So with Face ID, it hides all your notification contents until it sees your face. So I can have all these notifications on my screen, but it won't show the message content until Face ID recognizes my face, which I like a lot.
That screen, I'm sorry, a little mesmerized by it.
It is very good, yeah. Yeah, and you should see HDR videos on that fucking thing. It's really something.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. 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 I mean, I will, the thing for me is I pay into it, so I'm just going to pay monthly. That's what I do for that phone is I pay, and I'll just, because what I'm hoping is, to be honest with you, is I want to have an iPhone and an Android device or a Sailfish device or some other alternative device, and I'm just waiting for them to get worth it.
Can you put an icon by itself somewhere? Like if
I don't know. I don't know.
You can't.
On Springboard, you can't just have... Oh, you mean like somewhere in the middle of the thing?
Yeah.
No, you can't.
Yeah, like I want to put Signal over here.
No.
No.
But I also been playing a lot with HomeKit, and I like all that shit together. It's really nice.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting stuck in the Amazon Amazon.
But a lot of that stuff is added HomeKit support over time.
Yeah.
And vice versa. You don't want to put all your...
This is nice, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if the cost justifies the means.
Have you
though.
seen the? Oh, I know, right? Yeah. But I think that's also going to be more common. Have you seen the Clips app? This thing does real-time background replacement. I don't know how it'll do in this dark studio.
Well, it already has a built-in green screen for you, so.
Yeah, yeah. But so I can go here to scenes. Sorry, I'm off mic chat room. I can go here to maybe I guess I could put this on at least so people could see this. So I can go here to scenes here, maybe in theory, and I pick my scene.
Oh my God.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
Wow.
That's like the shit that would take an hour in Final Cut right there. And it's all around. You can look around.
Holy crap.
But you know what's weird, dude, is look, the mic is in the fucking shot.
Yeah, because it knows it's part of you.
Yeah, it's got the depth sensing. And this is one of many, of course.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's...
All right, that's...
And now I'm a hologram.
Well, we already knew that.
On the Millennium Falcon. Look at that.
All right, some of that stuff's pretty cool.
It's really
not
amazing.
worth $1,100.
No,
Cool.
it's amazing what they can do though in real time. I mean, like that is stuff that
You just cracked your phone. No, I'm just kidding. You just
I know, right?
I mean, are you doing the wireless charging?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I already had them for my Android devices,
that's
so
true.
I just tossed them. on.
They work.
Yeah. Yeah, I just had I have a bunch of Samsung. Well, not a bunch, but I have a
Does
couple
it
of.
bug you that this protrudes?
It protrudes?
Yeah.
Well, I have it either in the silicone case or I'll put it in the leather
You get a
case.
phone call. That sounds good. Good speaker.
It does have good speakers. I was actually, when I was listening to it, I was thinking Chase would like these speakers because I was listening to a podcast and I was like, good enough, like like Nexus 6P quality.
Does that feel like Star Trek for you now? A nice slim, just piece of glass.
It is pretty close.
Yeah,
it is pretty damn close. And you know what else is funny thing about the notch is the notch isn't that bad. I don't mind it that much because what I do mind way more than I mind the notch is the huge fucking bezel on the old phone.
Well, there's an app you can download, right?
Yeah, no notch.
Yeah, no notch.
Yeah. Yeah, the speakers are pretty good. Yeah, overall it's a good phone. I don't think I would have upgraded from the 7 to this if I had to pay $1,000 out of pocket.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I would have done
Fair
that.
enough, yeah. This week on User Error Plus.
Right. Okay, so let's get started here. Let's
strap in.
Here we go.
Here it comes.
This here is the Unfilter program. This is episode 259, and it begins right now in a 3, in a 2. My chair went up, so I can't reach my pedals. This is Unfilter, episode 259 for November 15th, 2017.
We begin tonight with Donald Trump Jr. and his secret correspondence, his messages for months with WikiLeaks before the election. The Atlantic breaking the story tonight, ABC News confirming the communications began during the campaign and continued well after his father was in the White House. Tonight, Don Jr.'s messages, what they reveal about WikiLeaks and their advice for the Trump campaign.
Hello, everyone. Happy Unfiltered Day to all of you. This is Unfiltered, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly show about the news you shouldn't be watching. I'm Chase, running the board this week with his brand new, slick, delicious-looking iPhone. Is it X or 10? I don't. What is it?
I think the X stands for NSA surveillance.
Fair enough. But hey, look on the bright side, Chris, because if you do anything bad and illegal or terrible,
I know.
It's encrypted.
Yeah.
And not even
your
best
actually,
buddies can get into it.
It's funny. We're going to get to that a little bit of the show.
Yeah,
Look at you teasing. It's good to have you back, buddy.
Thanks, man.
So we have... you know what I figured we'd do is we'd have a really good episode in 259 and then just totally coast for 260. What do you think?
You know what? That's the... you want to coast on the episodes ending in 0. That's usually... That's the rule.
I don't know if you've heard the 77th theory, but every 77 episodes, we have a good show. No, just kidding.
Only every
Would that be horrible?
The stuff that's happening right now is so good. Not even Hollywood could script it.
I know.
It's so good.
It's like it was built for this show. Like when we launched this show 259 weeks ago, we had no idea what we were getting into. So yeah, we're going to get into some cyber. We definitely have some Trump and Trump Jr. stuff. Then we're going to talk Uranium One. The show's going to take a position on Uranium One. And then there has been some shit going down with ISIS. We'll tell you about that.
By the way.
Thank you. Then we'll take the mail sack in, and then we'll end it all on a high note. And if you're up for it, stick around because we have a packed overtime too. So lots coming up today.
Lots
Mr.
of overtime.
Chase.
Nice.
You want to start with the cyber?
ASL. That's what I always say.
One of the real moments that just really stands out in the history of the Unfilter program, if we could talk about ourselves for a little more here, would be, I think you'd probably agree, would be the Snowden leaks.
Absolutely.
Big pivotal changing moment for the show. And it was one of these stories that really required that Chase, myself, and producer Matt just went all in on the research, just constantly consuming every little bit of detail we could find, reading every story that was published by the journalists that were running these stories, that had gotten their hands on these leaks. And it was really like, wow, this is what an unsanctioned, unplanned, huge drop of government information looks like. And so with that in mind, I can't help but look at this story that's come out this week and say, well, this stuff doesn't quite smell right. But apparently, Apparently, Chase, I don't know if you knew this, but the NSA has suffered the worst breach of their entire history, worse than Snowden, and we don't yet know the totality. So there's only one thing left to do.
What's that, man?
We have to bring your buddy on.
Oh, my good friend.
Mike Morrell.
Good old Mike.
From the CIA, and he
Yes.
can tell us the totality of the NSA breach.
Breach of the national security agencies described as catastrophic and even worse.
Did you hear about this catastrophic breach of the NSA?
Well, yeah. I mean, when they have Russia in there at the NSA, just feed them directly the secrets.
You know, like when Snowden's revelations came out, it was about Snowden. It was about his girlfriend. There was this immediate counter-information campaign.
Yeah.
But with this, the media desperately wants to tell you about this particular incident.
A reported breach of the national security agencies described as catastrophic and even worse than Edward Snowden's massive data leak.
Oh, that means he's off the hook now.
The New York Times reports a group called Shadow Brokers has been releasing information on NSA cyber weapons since August 2016. It's now being used against the United States.
The Times reports the government does not know if the secrets were leaked or hacked or whether the possible leaker is still at work. CBS News senior national security contributor Michael Morrell is a former deputy and acting director of the CIA. He's with us now from Washington. Good morning, Michael. Let me begin with this.
So he's a career CIA guy. They don't really set this up very well. So Mike Morrell was 20-plus years in the CIA, number 2, number 3 in command, then for a short period of time, number 1 in command when a few shenanigans went down. Then he left to become a CBS contributor. He left CBS, after that, the CIA broadcasting system, to become a Hillary Clinton campaign advisor. When Hillary's campaign failed, he came back to the CIA broadcasting system to share the CIA's point of view.
Chris,
I'm not making this up.
That's the Columbia broadcasting system.
There is no quitting the CIA. And if you've read any books on the CIA, this is one of the things that comes out clearly in all of them. Once you become a deep-level member of the CIA, you never quit. And him here on this program, he may be retired from the CIA, but he is 100% representing their opinion.
How damaging is this? What do we know about the damage to our national security?
Now, why a CIA guy is commenting on the national security damage caused by an NSA leak, I'm not sure.
Charlie, the only thing we know so far
is that I can read a prompter.
Are the tools that have been posted on the internet for sale. We don't
he missed
know.
an opportunity there, Chris. You know what he missed? He missed mentioning on the dark web.
That's true. That is true. So the totality of this breach is being measured by the tools that are for sale on
the dark web.
Charlie, the only thing we know so far are the tools that have been posted on the internet for sale. We don't know what else the leakers may have. And most important, Charlie, we don't know how this information got out of the National Security Agency. And that's 15 months after the first leak occurred.
Now, the only thing that is odd about this to me is, so when Snowden did a leak, he took he took a cache of documents, and he gave it to the to reputable journalists like Glenn Greenwald, the Guardian, the New York Times to a degree. He gave it to journalists that would then go through it, redact certain bits of information, work with the administration, and then publish it. And then the NSA was put in the, or the government in totality, was put in the position of having to respond to accusations that were coming out via these revelations, right?
Right. Makes sense. Yeah.
This catastrophic, as they put in quotes in the lower third, this catastrophic NSA breach is being told to us by the media, being told to us by government institutions. It is being telecasted to us by all of the same institutions that tried to shut down all conversation of the Snowden leaks. Like, they're going out of their way to inform us about this catastrophic NSA breach.
Probably because they want to get in front before anybody else does. That's what I think. I mean, when it's kind of like when there's somebody getting bad news, right? You know, if you get out in front of it.
It feels like spin of some kind.
Right.
It is a spin. It could be, that's a positive take on the type of spin.
The only other thing they should have done is maybe waited until Friday, and then they could have dumped the whole thing.
Well, that's just it. It's like, why are they even talking about this?
Because it's a distraction.
But if there was a fundamental breach and their tools are being exploited and the media wasn't already talking about it, wouldn't they instinctively try to keep it hush-hush?
It's one of those things where they already know that members of the media already have certain amounts of access. They have their insiders, quote unquote. And if they don't come out in front of that story before, say, somebody in the media does at ABC or NBC, CBS, whatever, it's going to make them look even worse. So if they come out
I agree.
and be like, hey,
but then
we're
why
doing
didn't
this
they,
in front of the American
so
people and things
I
like
completely agree with you. It is better to take control of the message. But
Yeah.
then they knew about the Snowden revelations before they were ever published because The Guardian went to the administration, went to the Obama.
I think it's easier when you have a specific person you can point at. Right, and say, here's the poster person, here's
Right.
the
Right.
guy or the
Whereas
gal,
this,
whatever.
You're just seeing tools show up online. You're like, well, shit, those are our tools. We didn't even know we had a
Right,
leak.
and then you can try to tie in Russia or any other
That
foreign
would be good
entity.
if you could bring Russia in. That would be good.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what's most scary to me because
Scary to
that
me, too.
says we don't know the totality of this, and more important, we don't know if they're stealing information as we sit here right now.
We don't know the totality of this could also mean this is a total minor incident that is not even worth mentioning, but because I don't know the totality of it yet, I'm mentioning it, right? So that goes two ways. It could mean it's bigger than we know, but it also could mean it's minor than we realized. And so it's a tricky way to get out of talking about the seriousness of the breach.
Well, not only that, but this is one of those instances, you guys, bookmark episode 259, whenever the government comes back and they say, we need to get back in access to your iPhone or your Android device or whatever the case may be. We want to keep these tools, so we have these abilities.
Yeah.
Well, guess what happens? This kind of stuff gets
Yes,
leaked,
yes.
and then all of a sudden that back door can never be closed.
Do you remember the Petya ransomware? Same thing. Those
Yeah.
were based on NSA tools.
Because that says we don't know the totality of this, and more important, we don't know if they're stealing information as we sit here right now.
Is it worse than Edward Snowden leak in 2013?
Nora, I think so because he leaked descriptions of these tools. These are the actual tools themselves.
Right. That's a big difference.
Huge
Talking about what the tools can do versus giving you the actual tools is a night and day difference.
So what are the risks here, Michael, do you think, for the average American?
Nothing.
So
They have to worry about
I think there's two,
Equifax.
Gail. The first is that we used these tools to collect intelligence on our adversaries to protect the country. We've now made that much more difficult to collect that intelligence.
This, now that you've said that thing about encryption backdoors, I can't stop thinking about it. Every time he talks about this, imagine if you had encryption backdoors to every major encryption.
Right. Well, yeah, if they had the keys that they want privately, and all of a sudden these are private tools that no one should have, and all of a sudden people have.
These are our biggest national security treasures.
Yeah.
Made that much more difficult to collect that intelligence that's so important. The second is that some of these tools are being used against the United States government and against U.S. companies today.
Which that also would happen because United States government personnel are using iPhones or using encryption. They would have these things that are vulnerable to backdoors.
Time to go back to the BlackBerry, right?
Pen and paper, dude.
Bez.
They're being turned back against us.
So essentially the technology that we developed at Fort Meade is now being used by other governments to hack into some of our companies and our personal information.
That's exactly right, Nora.
So we think it was a government then?
So we don't know, Charlie.
Well, I mean, this is...
Is this Charlie going for that angle?
This is the Alan Jude coming out in me, but if you're a government, you do not go on the black market and sell the secrets you've found. Those are your prizes that you can now use to attack your enemy.
Yeah.
Right. You don't go sell them for the highest bidder on Bitcoin.
Some people are pointing fingers at Russia. I'm not so sure about that because
he mentioned it.
Yeah. Russia gets
I
a
was waiting for
mention.
that.
Several reports, all the networks have a report. Russia always gets a mention, but he's not so on board with the Russia thing.
we don't know, Charlie. Some people are pointing fingers at Russia. I'm not so sure about that because if Russia had access to NSA in terms of a cyber internet access or in terms of an insider, why would they go public and give that up?
The way he's talking right now makes me think he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
I tend to think this is either a disgruntled insider or an outside group.
What about a disgruntled contractor?
Right. Yeah. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these cyber weapons are being turned against the world, according to NBC.
In the world of espionage, the question remains, who are the shadow brokers? The group claiming responsibility for what may be the biggest security breach ever at the NSA, now taunting the country in posts riddled with spelling errors. Recently writing, is NSA chasing shadows? So was the breach the work of foreign hackers or someone on the inside? Former NSA analyst Orrin Falkowitz says it's had a chilling effect on NSA staffers.
Oh, That's rough.
It puts them under suspicion. It puts the people they work with into question.
You guess what? They already were.
And it slows the progress of protecting the country.
Yeah, it always did, actually.
Whoever stole the NSA's cyber weapons then used them to launch ransomware attacks against hospitals, banks, shipping, and drug companies.
I feel like there's a lesson in here somewhere, Chase.
Yeah.
Do you think there might be?
Maybe.
One online post hints at a Russian connection. Russian security people are becoming Russian hackers at night, but only full moons.
Hackerezes? Did you see that?
I did.
Hackerezes?
This whole thing is like...
they're using the iPhone technology.
It's basic. It's basic here. Because the hackers did these real bad misspellings, they must be foreigners.
They're leet.
Which seems like an obvious misdirection to me.
Spelled L33T, right?
Right. Yes, that's the
FBI have taken this breach extremely seriously, but their inability to actually find the root cause is deeply problematic. It means that additional information could be exfiltrated.
The damage is said to be among the most severe ever. The FBI's former chief cyber agent in New York. Is the game stacked against the United States government in terms of being able to respond quickly and effectively and put up necessary defenses?
The advantage is with the attacker because they have the ability to study a system, find its weaknesses, and find a way inside.
That would be not only true for Cyber Chase, that would be true for every single attack.
Yes.
It is, say veterans, full-scale cyber warfare requiring both a strong offense and defense. Tom Costello, NBC News, Washington.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. That was really a good report there, Tom. That was super, super good there, Tom.
I especially like he was very concerned and nodding during that interview.
So we have this huge breach. Huge breach. It's worse than Snowden. It's just awful.
You're also a cyber security expert, and yesterday, stunning news on the NSA, first page of the New York Times.
So it goes out on the front page of the New York Times, the first page, as he puts it, which was also interesting because if you remember, one of the people that Snowden didn't find workable was the New York Times. He ended up going to Glenn Greenwald and The Guardian because the New York Times was so in with the government.
Has been breached, has been hacked. What did we lose? Who did it?
Right, so this is from shadow brokers. Many viewers will recall the WannaCry ransomware virus, which was released way back in June of this year, and targeted computers. And at this point, we don't know exactly who is responsible, who are shadow brokers. We believe it's Russia. There have been 3 NSA employees who have been arrested. We're not even sure if that's the result, if they were responsible for the leak of this.
They must have been Russian NSA employees, probably close personal friends of Vladimir Putin.
Information. So really the forensics are ongoing, and that's very disturbing.
How much?
Oh yeah, it's so fucking disturbing. The forensics are ongoing, and God, that's scary. You know, the professionals that are coming in and doing an investigation to properly get the facts. God, that's so scary, Chase.
I'm afraid I'm getting on the table.
Woo!
Forensics are ongoing, and that's very disturbing.
How much damage was done? What was lost?
I would say massive damage. Look, many in the IC believe that.
I would say massive vagaries.
It's worse than Snowden. Snowden, if he released the code words, this was the code. These are hacking tools. The NSA is the most sophisticated agency in the world.
This pisses me off because these tools
so vague.
I mean, not only vague, but it shouldn't have been this easy. It feels like this is too easy.
Yeah, like if you could just get in there and all of a sudden have access to all the tools. I love that Dr. Evil version of Putin is good.
Hacking into foreign computers. And now we've unable to protect our own, which is of concern.
I wish that was fake news. It's not.
It's not fake news. It's not fake news, Chase.
I have a little conspiracy bacon, just a smidge. Maybe I don't
really.
I don't know. If it feels like this is way too nicely wrapped for us. It's
doesn't it?
It's a gift.
It's got a bow on top.
So taking the distraction angle out of it for a minute, the look over here argument. What if this was intentional, where they leaked these tools, but they're not really tools? They still have the real good tools, but they leaked out like tainted tools or tools that have hidden backdoors for the NSA. And so by them advertising this to the world saying, oh, our tools got hacked, we lost our tools, and then they're hoping that bad people start using them, and then in turn they're able to kind of reverse engineer things or whatever. It just feels like this is way too nicely wrapped.
I agree. There is something about it. It's like it's got a bow on top. It's got sprinkles.
Yeah.
Here's all the information we desperately want to tell you about
and
it.
we lost them. Oops. Oh, my God. This
Catastrophic.
is the worst ever.
Worse than Snowden.
Worse than, and notice that's a key talking point across
and
all aspects.
It might be Russia, and it's worse than Snowden.
It makes me want to kind of raise my eyebrow like The Rock a little bit.
I agree. You know what else is raising my eyebrow like The Rock is, I don't know how many months ago we talked about this Vault 7 release.
Yes.
Do you remember in Vault 7, one of the things that came out is that the CIA had the ability to impersonate entire countries. Like they would set typeface, they would set fonts, they would set time of day, they would set all of these language options that would make them look like a foreign country. Well, it appears that it's much more extensive than we previously thought. And I don't know, did we talk about Kaspersky on this show?
Oh, yes.
How you and I both thought it was like kind of a shame that they were getting really kind of shit on?
Yeah.
A little bit, because it was good software.
Yeah.
It was Kaspersky software was like decent antivirus, but on top of that, what I really respect about Kaspersky was a lot of really good investigation was happening with like Stuxnet. Kaspersky was pivotal into investigating Stuxnet and the U.S.'s involvement in that, and a bunch of other really good government-backed malware. And Kaspersky had developed over the years this impressive research arm of the company as a result of Stuxnet to some degree.
Yeah, I remember.
And then recently, there's been all of this shit about how Kaspersky is malware. Kaspersky was using its antivirus software to spy on your computer and report back to the Russians, and Kaspersky had been fingerprinted for hacking into stuff. Well, it turns out that all might be shit.
Good evening, friends. We start tonight with Hive, H-I-V-E, a CIA hacking tool capable of masking itself and impersonating public companies. The code was specifically designed to impersonate the software of Russian antivirus company Kaspersky. WikiLeaks first began publishing the source code for Hive back in April of this year. The current leak confirms the CIA is capable of making it appear the source of a hack was an outside source.
This seems like an unignorable fact.
Namely the Russians.
Yeah, you can make yourself look like the Russians, and then that same organization that has that tool then attributes it to the Russians. It just seems like a conflict there.
The United States government has gone on the offensive against Kaspersky, accusing it of being involved in Russian efforts to hack American servers. For more on this tonight, we turn to former CIA officer Jack Rice. Jack, this reads like a spy novel, if nothing else. What is this? What's its capability? Tell us about it.
Well, it's a fascinating issue, Ed. And again, this alleged op that's out there right now, when we look at it, the idea would be to do something essentially called a false flag operation of sorts. You could do something, and when you're done with it, it would look like somebody else did it.
Now, you could make it look like Ukraine, you could make it look like Iran, you could make it look like Kaspersky. That seems like the exact kind of tool a spy agency would want to have, and then they could use that. And you could look at the raw data and you'd say, well, look at these fingerprints, look at this data. It says Russia.
Mm-hmm.
I know. I mean, what do you do? There's nothing you can do with that other than just go, okay, well, I'm going to take that into advisement for future stories.
Right.
There's like nothing you can do with that.
Right, yeah. You just kind of like, okay, great.
There's a story, though, that has been brewing that I bet a lot of our audience, I know you're on top of it already. Everybody is probably concerned about this that has any kind of technological bent, and that is this slow, simmering, crockpot war against encryption. And every time there is some massive event in the U.S., it's generally used as an opportunity by the FBI or the Justice Department or whoever it is at that time. It's generally used as an opportunity to blame encryption, to blame secure devices. And there was a shooting in Texas at a church. I know. It's hard to keep them all straight these days. And that very incident is being used to blame the phones.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Christopher Combs, the FBI SAC here in San Antonio.
Let's stop right there. This is an initiative that has been driven by the FBI since day one. It doesn't really seem to be driven by local police. It doesn't seem to be driven by the NSA or the CIA. This is an FBI initiative since day one, since Comey was coming out on these mics.
Morning, everybody. I'm Christopher Combs, the FBI SAC here in San Antonio. As the commander stated, the phone of the subject was turned over to us. We flew that on a GPS plane last night to Quantico.
A GPS plane, Chase.
Wait.
Because we don't track all the other planes. Stupid fuck.
They're in the process of looking at the phone. Unfortunately, at this point in time, we are unable to get into that phone.
I propose to you that it is literally impossible for these organizations like the FBI to handle the modern security systems that we have. So let's replay this a little bit because I did interrupt it, and then we're going to talk more about it. Like, they are just built as an organization in a way that makes them so slow and so stupid and so unable to respond to things in any kind of timely manner that they simply are incapable of handling situations like this. I present you the evidence right here.
GPS plane last night to Quantico. They're in the process of looking at the phone. Unfortunately, at this point in time, we are unable to get into that phone. So it actually highlights an issue that you've all heard about before with the advance of the technology and the phones and the encryptions.
The phones and the technologies and the encryptions.
And the widgets you kids use today.
Law enforcement, whether it's at the state, local, or the federal level, is increasingly not able to get into these phones.
So this is not going away. And you got dumbasses like this. Here's the problem, Chase. There is a critical window of time when it comes to these devices, and any kind of sophisticated encryption system is going to have this problem.
For about 48 hours after a deadly rampage at a Texas church, the FBI and other law enforcement agencies did not ask Apple Inc. to help them unlock the gunman's iPhone or associated online accounts.
Now, why is 48 hours? Why is that number important? Do you know?
Because after that, when you try to get into a phone, it requires the PIN, right?
Right. If you use the thumbprint within 48 hours, they could have taken this dumb son of a bitch's phone.
His dead
and they could have taken his yes, exactly, his dead corpse and pressed his thumb up against the button, and they could have unlocked his phone and gotten access to everything.
Yeah.
The last time with the San Bernardino, when we had this same situation, it was the same thing. They fucked up the initial phone handling, and then they screwed up on how to get access to it. They ended up spending tons of money on some Israeli company's solution to pull the board out and access the RAM directly, or the ROM, whatever the hell you call it in these solid-state devices. And meanwhile, if these dumb shits, and the reason why this upsets me, and I'm sorry about the curse words, but I am genuinely angry here. I am so angry because if these people at the FBI that are trying so hard would just, if they could just get their shit together in, 12 hours. Okay, maybe not 12 hours. How about 18 hours? No, 18 hours? Okay, 24 hours. No, 24 hours is too long. Okay, 32 hours. If they could get their shit together in 36 hours, they could get access to this phone and they could have all the information they want. But instead, they're too slow, they're too bureaucratic, and they waste 3 days. And then it has to become this huge debate about encryption, about access to encryption, about the security of these phones. It becomes this entire conversation that never needed to happen if these stupid, lazy, slow sons of bitches would just press the phone up against the dead man's body in the first 48 hours. That's all they'd had to do. They had to take this slab of glass and press it up against this dumb fuck's dead hand, and they could get access to the phone, and none of this would be a problem. But they don't do it. And at this point, I have to believe it's intentional.
Oh, yeah, totally.
You think so, too?
Oh, absolutely, because they know, first off,
they want to cause this conversation.
Yeah, that's why
they want to create this problem.
The special agent in charge is sitting there at the podium saying, as you all were well aware, we could not get into the. It's just continuing the narrative.
It really upsets me, Chase, because what it does is it convolutes the idea of the only way you can have security is by losing privacy, and that is 100% false. Yep. The only way that you can get good privacy and good security is through real encryption that you can rely on, and the two are related. You can't have good security without good privacy. You just can't. You can't. It doesn't work. And so they want to fundamentally alter the encryption. They want to create escrow accounts that the companies all go in on. And they want to make certain open source projects illegal to develop in the United States. None of this is going to work. If they would just press the stupid piece of glass up against the dead man's thumb, we wouldn't have this problem, but they're too stupid to pull it off in 48 hours. And so as a result of that, we need to compromise the entire world's security.
Yeah. That's a great idea.
Isn't it? I mean, it's so, and it's like it feels like it's one of the most
but then
like
again,
dense things that our government's trying to do right now.
Go back to the previous story about the leaking of the tools. It's like how, granted, the leaking of the tools happened after this press conference, but it's one of those things with, like, you look at one, it's like, no, you're not going to get tools because you can't keep the tools that you have already safe. Do you think we're going to trust you?
Exactly. Like, you're currently proving why we shouldn't trust you.
Yeah.
You're, like, this week.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bought
Yes.
the gunman's iPhone or associated online accounts, according to Reuters. This was a loss in time that could have been critical to the ongoing investigation. A cell phone belonging to Devin Kelly, accused of killing 26 people before taking his own life, was sent to the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Quantico, Virginia crime lab because authorities could not unlock it. Christopher Combs, head of the FBI's San Antonio field office, said on Tuesday.
And it's this every single time. It's this story. And so we're going to watch it and see where it goes because I have a feeling this could have massive ramifications
But
across
honestly,
the industry.
you got a lot of smart people at Google and Apple that will just go, see, this is why we can't make a tool, because look what, you can't even keep anything safe. You can't. Maybe the aliens you keep safe in Nevada at Area 51, but no, you can't keep this safe. Okay?
I feel like, too, at the end of the day, for companies like Apple and Samsung, there are larger markets than the U.S. And if they build in these backdoors for the U.S.
China is going to want them. Absolutely.
India will want them.
North Korea.
Yep, exactly. It doesn't end there.
No, it doesn't.
All right, let's shift gears. We haven't had a dedicated Trump segment on the show for a couple of episodes, so let's get into the Trumps for a moment.
Well, he's been in Asia.
Yes, and apparently he's accomplished quite many things.
He has done an amazing job when he was over there.
He wanted to let us know today, too.
Yes, he did. By the way, full disclosure, Chris and I watched the press conference today live.
Yeah.
And that was
fun.
That was wow. And good on Rubio, by the way.
Do you want to? Okay, so
go for it.
All right, so there was a moment during the Trump press conference today that was, well, it reminded us a lot of Marco Rubio.
Japanese companies have announced investments in the United States worth more than $8 billion, 17,000 jobs.
And he stops.
And he looks in the podium.
He's looking down below the podium.
There's no one down there.
And this was simulcasted on every network live,
wall to wall. I mean, basically at work we get an alert saying, usually whenever the network's going to break in for a special report, we get the heads up. It was supposed to happen at high noon.
It was supposed to happen at high noon. It did not. No. Everybody had to sit around and kill time for like a half hour.
Well, waiting for high noon. President comes on. He comes out full steam ahead.
And then he's like into this thing like 15 minutes, and he just totally stops, and he ducks down under the podium.
What is he doing?
He's ducking under the podium.
Thank you.
He says, thank you. He's completely out of the camera frame right now.
Oh.
He says, oh.
They don't have water. That's okay.
And then he stops, and I can't describe what this is like.
How low did he go, by the way?
He's a healthy man. I can't describe what this is like to watch because you've never seen a president completely stop when all of the cameras, all of the press are on them. It's not like this is something that gets edited. This
is live.
What?
So someone was probably like, you want a bottle? Here's my water.
No, it's right down next to you.
Oh, okay.
He hadn't even seen it yet.
Oh, okay.
We've talked about this before.
That's right.
He doesn't notice stuff.
He doesn't.
He just is like super focused.
Well, it's okay.
There's a thing of water right there.
Okay.
To his left, or whatever it would be. It's a Fiji water. He opens it.
By the way,
this is national. This is on every television
network. And you know why
network.
he probably didn't open it over the podium? Because I think there's flat screens there on top of the podium. So
there is.
So at least he was conscious not to get the stuff wet.
But this is a lot of awkward. This is 20 seconds of He then does this weird puckering thing.
Yeah, it was.
And then this weird.
Did you hear the
clicks?
The camera like wave.
Yeah. And now he's closing the water back up.
Japanese manufacturers, Toyota and Mazda, announced that they will be opening a new plant in the United States that will create 4,000 jobs. We also signed agreements between our nations to enhance infrastructure development, increase access to affordable energy, and advance our foreign policy goals.
There was even a few more like weird like sips of the water moments too.
Yeah. I mean, and so Chris and I were talking like the whole Marco Rubio thing, and Rubio just recently tweeted out about it. About the president's technique and everything. It was very weird and awkward, and it also felt like, why did this have to happen right now?
Yeah.
Like he just got.
It was
back.
like a capper. It was to cap off the trip, I think.
Yeah, it was very weird.
Yeah. So I was watching the news today, and I followed a particular story only in written text. You ever done this where like you follow like Trump has a press conference and you follow the transcript and you read the transcript and you're like, oh, okay, and then you file that away. I think I have a link to it in the show notes too.
Right.
And then a day later, a news report comes out about it, and you're like, well, wait a minute. If you read the transcript, this is obviously false.
With those controversial remarks from President Trump over whether Russia meddled in the 2016 election. The president sparked confusion and criticism with comments he made to reporters following a private meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin at the APEC summit in Vietnam on Saturday. When asked if Russia's attempt to interfere in the U.S. election came up in the conversation, Trump responded, "Every time he sees me, he says I didn't do that. And I really believe that when he tells me that, he means it." The president also criticized members of the U.S. intelligence community, saying, quote, "I mean, give me a break. They are political hacks. You have Brennan, you have Clapper, and you have Comey. So you look at that, and you have President Putin very strongly, vehemently, says he has nothing to do with them. Now, you are not going to get into an argument. You are going to start talking about Syria and the Ukraine." A day later, Trump appeared to walk back those comments after facing sharp criticism from both Republicans and Democrats alike. So then, clarifying his remarks during a press conference with the Vietnamese president on Sunday, Trump said, quote, "As to whether I believe it or not, I'm with our agencies, especially as currently constituted. Not leaving it there."
All right. Everybody... I wouldn't say everybody. There are a segment of our audience that accuses me of, being slanted either way. Just look at what the president said, okay? There's no fake news there. There's direct quotes from the president.
Now,
and on top of that, you have Putin, who is a former KGB agent.
Oh, you're doing that line though?
But it's true. Is that not true? Was he a former agent? Okay.
It is true.
Are agents supposed to lie?
Well, here's the thing. They're spies. They're
right,
spies.
exactly.
They're lies,
So he's going to believe a spy.
No, I know. I agree.
Right? I'm just saying.
I agree.
I'm just saying.
Now, the only not a defense, but
the other angle.
If you read the transcript, it is almost 5 to 10 minutes of discussing North Korea. It's all about North Korea. It's about stopping North Korea. It's about working together with different nations. And then he gives his whole pitch, and all of the press questions, every single one of the press questions is about Russia. Russia, meddling with the election, Russia this. And they ask him the same question 3 or 4 times. And it's the 4th time he answers that they run with that answer. So the first few times it's like, yeah, he says he doesn't believe he meddled, but, what does it matter? What does it matter what he says? I'm not there to argue with him. I'm there to get a resolution on Ukraine and Syria. And then they ask him literally the same question again, and he answers it again, and then he answers it a 3rd time, and then he answers it a 4th time, and it's that 4th answer where he's like, yeah, he believes it, and then that's the one they run with. So he answered it pretty good the first 2 or 3 times.
Then he should just shut up then.
Well, but they don't stop. Then that's what they run with.
Right. Well, then what he needs to do is say, I've already answered your question.
Yeah, you're right.
You're
right.
He needs to be smart about
yeah,
that.
Yeah. He feeds him. He keeps going.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I totally agree. with you.
You're digging your own hole there.
Yeah.
Stop it.
But it was funny though. The only reason I bring this up is because I read the transcript first, and then a couple days later I saw the news reports about it. I was like, whoa. If you read the transcript, it's really like, yeah, well, of course he's gonna say that. He's Putin. You know, like, it's not like Trump's buying into it. But then it's like the fourth time, like, I don't know. My point is they're so single-minded because the whole thing's about North Korea. That's what the whole press conference was about. And he's talking about, like, some good plans for North Korea. And the whole thing gets butt-fucked by these reporters who won't stop obsessing over Russia. And it's so frustrating because you can see, like, he's trying to address one thing and they will only talk about another thing. And then what gets all of the coverage is the one dumb answer he gives in like a 25-minute press conference.
Right.
And then to make matters worse, for whatever reason, the White House won't let the audio of that event go out, probably because they would just play it over and over again. And then, you know, so the couple other things that Trump said on this whole trip that was weird is like, yeah, well, you know, the reason why Putin and I get along is because we got great chemistry. You know, Obama and Putin, they didn't have chemistry.
Could you once and for all, definitively, sir, yes or no, say whether or not you believe that President Putin and or Russia interfered in the election?
What I said, I'm surprised that there's any conflict on this. What I said there is that I believe he believes that, and that's very important for somebody to believe.
I know, but that is what he said. What he said initially was, well, Putin believes they didn't have any involvement. He believes that. I don't care. I want to focus on Ukraine and Syria. That was his first answer. That's decent. It's not great, and you're right. The next 4 times, he shouldn't have said fucking shit.
Yeah.
He should have just said, refer to my first answer. I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
I believe that he feels that he and Russia did not meddle in the election. As to whether I believe it or not, I'm with our agencies, especially as currently constituted with their leadership. I believe in our intel agencies, our intelligence agencies. I've worked with them very strongly. There weren't 17, as was previously reported. There were actually 4. But they were saying there were 17. There were actually 4. But as currently
this is also where he screws up. He could just say, I subscribe to the current conclusion of our intelligence agencies. But instead, he kind of like, he waffles around a little bit.
Very strongly. There weren't 17, as was previously reported. There were actually 4.
And I say it's actually 3, because the 4th would be the Office of Intelligence, which is sort of like the management office. They don't actually perform intelligence investigations themselves. So technically, they are an agency, but they don't perform investigations themselves. They just collate the findings of the other agencies. So he says 4. I say technically it's 3.
They were saying there were 17. There were actually 4. But as currently led by fine people, I believe very much in our intelligence agencies.
If I could throw a little bit of a change up.
Now, at the same time, I want to be able, because I think it's very important, to get along with Russia, to get along with China, to get along with Vietnam.
I don't disagree with that either.
Get along with lots of countries, because we have a lot of things we have to solve. And frankly, Russia and China in particular can help us with the North Korea problem, which is one of our truly great problems. So I'm not looking to stand and start arguing with somebody.
I do like that he appreciates the fact that North Korea is legitimately, out of all this stupid bullshit we talk about, North Korea is legitimately like a real problem he faces. Like, I'm glad that he at least acknowledges this is one of our true problems is North Korea.
Right.
He needs to do something with that. It's on his administration.
When there's reporters all around and cameras recording and seeing our conversation, I think it was very obvious to everybody. I believe that President Putin really feels, and he feels strongly, that he did not meddle in our election. What he believes is what he believes. What I believe is that we have to get to work, and I think everybody understood this that heard the answer. We have to get to work to solve Syria, to solve North Korea, to solve Ukraine, to solve terrorism.
I see when you hear him in his full context, it to me seems much more reasonable.
Totally, I agree with that.
I don't know. It's like this Russia stuff is dominating so strongly that I don't think we should stop talking about the Russia investigation altogether, but it's like you have to make room for what's actually happening too. And in the meantime, you can take you can take the caricature of Donald Trump and you can use that to cause concern about maybe like his access to nukes.
President Trump closely followed wherever he goes by a military aide with the nuclear codes. That's what worries some senators.
The President of the United States is so unstable, is so volatile, he might order a nuclear weapons strike that is wildly out of step with U.S. national security interests.
But ever since Harry Truman was president after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, if a president wants to launch an attack, no one can stop him. Not his defense secretary, not Congress.
That's 100% inaccurate. That is absolutely, completely false. The military has the option at any point in time to decline any order that they feel is not lawful. So they actually, the military, as creepy in some ways as this is,
it's a chain of command thing.
They have the right to decline a military nuke strike.
Like, for example, the movie Crimson Tide. You know, the first officer says, "No, I will not concur with your orders under Navy regulations."
Yeah.
There you go.
And so this when they say no one can stop him, that's not actually true at all. The military could say, "Well, sorry, Mr. President."
I think part of the reason why they don't want to mention that either is then it undermines, like, maybe it's starting to paint a picture of militaristic control with the militaristic cabinet.
I wonder. Yeah, we wouldn't want to touch on that, would we?
Well, and that's something that honestly that they've painted that picture.
Yeah.
But
GE doesn't want us talking about that. Raytheon doesn't want us talking about that. Boeing doesn't want us talking about that.
Yeah.
And Nagasaki. If a president wants to launch an attack, no one can stop him.
Which is false, actually.
Not his defense secretary, not Congress, not the military officers who would fire the missiles.
The president has the sole authority to give that order, whether we are responding to a nuclear attack or not. Once that order is given and verified, there is no way to revoke it.
So here's what's going on, and I don't know which one it is. I'd like your take on it, Chase. Either the Democrats think that the American public is so stupid that they can hold these hearings and they can make everybody afraid of Trump's ability to launch nukes. That's option number one. Or option number two is they themselves are so stupid that they don't understand how the U.S. government works and they don't understand the fundamental power structure that is in place for our unique ability to destroy the world. Like, there's a few things the U.S. government can do that would actually destroy the world. Nukes is it. And they don't even have the basics of how that fucking process works. So either A, they're trying to fool the American public and scare them about Trump's ability to control nukes, or B, they are so uninformed that they probably shouldn't be in government. Which one do you think it is?
I think it's a part of A and a part of C. And the C part is to try to use the guise of Trump to craft new law
to reduce power from the presidency?
To reduce power from the presidency.
Oh, but would they want that if, say, their own guy was in office? I don't think they would.
No, I think so, because you look at the kind of power that our Congress structure has right now. There's a lot of captured agencies that are basically running the show and how they want to run the show. And so when you have more and more of your own people in there and you can control your own things, you won't even need the president. You can just do your own thing.
Yeah, but could you imagine if Congress, which is full of lobbyists and lawyers, was responsible for responding to a strike? We would die. We would die by the time they come to any kind of conclusion. They still haven't authorized the military action in Afghanistan or Libya or Iraq. Like, this is all under the president's authority and the AMF. Like, they have no say in it. They are impotent. They are fundamentally impotent when it comes to our war machine, and now they think they can control our nukes?
I'm going to read this from one of our chatters who just popped it in, and I think this is a nice time to bring it in. So this is from Omnipotence, and he says, and this is directly from the National Command Authority about firing nukes. And this is, only the president can direct the use of nuclear weapons by the United States Armed Forces, including the Single Integrated Operational Plan. While the president does have unilateral authority as a commander-in-chief to order that the nuclear weapons be used for any reason, any time, the actual procedures and technical systems in place for authorizing the execution of a launch requires a secondary confirmation under a two-man rule.
There you go.
As the president's order is subject to secondary confirmation by the Secretary of Defense.
Right.
If the Secretary of Defense does not concur, then the president may, in his sole discretion, fire the secretary. The Secretary of Defense has legal authority to approve the order but cannot veto it. So basically, you have that concurrence, but at the end of the day, it is true. Yeah, he can go for it.
Right.
But then you have the old, like you were saying, the old other stuff.
The military has the.
Right.
I'll play. You know, I have a clip.
Thanks for
but
posting that on
I would
there.
have to dig, but I do have a clip where they. You know what? This is a pretty important conversation. Maybe I should just go find this. I was going to only play this on the live stream, but so here I will find. Here is
on the other side.
This is a PBS. This is a PBS news piece, and they are. This is Senator Bob Corker, and he's interviewing a Air Force general.
The president has the sole authority to give that order.
Today, the threat comes from North Korean intercontinental ballistic missiles. U.S. intelligence predicts they could soon carry a nuclear warhead. President Trump has threatened preventive war.
They will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen. Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime.
Many Americans share my fear that the president's bombastic words could turn into nuclear reality.
The president has the sole authority to launch nuclear weapons, but that doesn't mean he can launch a weapon for no reason, whenever he wants, said Duke professor Peter Feaver, who's studied nuclear command for 30 years.
Where the military wakes up the president and warns him that there is about to be an attack, or that we're experiencing attack, he alone would have the authority to make the decision. But in the other context, where the president's waking up the military, maybe in an extreme funk, saying, I'm angry and I want something done.
This casting of a potential presidential scenario where Trump is grumpy and he's off his meds and he wants to do a nuke strike, so he calls up the Pentagon, that feels more damaging to the democracy, to the stability of our government than any fucking Facebook ad that Russia might have bought. Because you are fundamentally undermining the trust that the people have in their commander and chief. I don't like the idea that anyone can order a strike at all. So I'm not sitting here trying to be Mr. Proponent of nuclear strikes, but let me just make it clear. I don't for a second think that guy in the White House could just call up the Pentagon and say, hey, you know what? I'm tired of Benjamin Netanyahu. He said some mean things. Let's nuke Israel. Guess what? No way in fucking hell is that going to happen. And you know it. You know it. You know it. You listening to this show, you know it. You know it. And this is damaging. This is more damaging than a lot of the stupid pretend propaganda on Twitter or Facebook.
But in the other context, where the president's waking up the military, maybe in an extreme funk, saying, I'm angry and I want something done, in that setting, he requires the cooperation of a lot of people.
Everybody knows that when the president is in an extreme funk and just wants something done, he orders a drone strike. Everybody knows that.
Saying, I'm angry and I want something done. In that setting, he requires the cooperation of a lot of people.
That cooperation wouldn't be forthcoming if his order were illegal, said retired General Robert Kaler, the former head of U.S. Strategic Command.
The United States military doesn't blindly follow orders. A presidential order to employ U.S. nuclear weapons must be legal. The basic legal principles of military necessity, distinction, and proportionality apply to nuclear weapons just as they do to every other weapon.
Maryland Democrat Ben Cardin.
You believe that because of legalities, you retain that decision to disobey the commander-in-chief?
Yes.
Yeah. It's like, and then he's supposed to say, "Have you seen Crimson Tide?"
Yeah,
and
right. Have you seen Wag the Dog?
Yeah, exactly.
When I see that, I'm like, so what's all this about? Why are you holding these hearings? What is this really about? Is it a distraction? Is it about political stuff? Is it about 2018? What is it really about?
Right.
So when you hear about limiting when you hear about limiting Trump's access to the codes or the football, it's probably all for show. The reality is,
you're probably right.
The military's running the show. The military's running the show.
Oh, and the military-industrial complex. Don't forget them, too.
Mm-hmm.
They're right there.
That and apparently WikiLeaks.
Oh, that's right.
They're apparently
Julian
pulling...
Assange.
Yeah, he's pulling some strings, too.
Donald Trump Jr. confirms he had direct communication with WikiLeaks during and after the last presidential campaign. The organization apparently contacted him first. Last night, the president's oldest son released pages of private messages from September and October 2016. During that period, WikiLeaks published emails and documents stolen from Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman. Jeff Pegues is in Washington with what we learned from Trump Jr.'s messages. Jeff, good morning.
Good morning. Donald Trump Jr. doesn't believe this new information proves anything, and his lawyer essentially said there's nothing to worry about. But congressional investigators tell us that they see these revelations as more potential evidence of possible coordination between the Trump campaign and Russian operatives.
This has been an election for change.
The president's son, Donald Trump Jr., was in direct communication with WikiLeaks from September 2016 until July of this year. It appears WikiLeaks initiated contact. Trump Jr. released screenshots Monday of what he claims are all of the Twitter private messages between him and the controversial website. Candidate Trump frequently praised WikiLeaks during the campaign.
WikiLeaks. I love WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks is amazing. The stuff that's coming out.
WikiLeaks.
I love WikiLeaks.
WikiLeaks. So Twitter is...
using DMs and Twitter.
Twitter is the platform that just totally levels the playing field. I swear. Like, people of... it's just like... like... Everybody's on Twitter that is in this political situation. Like, Hillary's on Twitter, Trump's on Twitter, Julian Assange is on Twitter, Trump Jr. is on Twitter. Everybody's on Twitter. It really is amazing.
Well,
so,
did he have the verified check mark? Because there's a little...
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But, you know, so, of course, they'll have access to DMs. And I'll play a little more of this, and I have some insights to share.
The day after those comments, on October 12th, WikiLeaks sent Donald Trump Jr. a link to the hacked Democratic emails with this message. Strongly suggest your dad tweets this link if he mentions us. An hour later, candidate Trump tweeted, very little pickup of incredible information provided by WikiLeaks.
Now, he didn't include the link, which...
But he does eventually.
Well, no, Jr. does.
Jr., that's what I meant, yeah.
On October 14th, Donald Trump Jr. sent out the link himself, saying, all the WikiLeaks emails are right here. That same day, then Vice Presidential...
Yeah, so there was Jr. a little bit later.
What do you think about this?
Well, it is super disappointing as far as WikiLeaks goes. I'll get to that. So,
okay, all right. I'll let you set it up some more.
Yeah, a little more.
Nominee Mike Pence was asked about Trump campaign contact with WikiLeaks on Fox News.
Some have suggested on the left that all this bad stuff about Hillary, nothing bad about Trump, that your campaign is in cahoots with WikiLeaks.
Nothing could be further from the truth.
U.S. intelligence officials determined that WikiLeaks was being used by the Russians to disseminate material that was stolen from Democrats.
All right, so I do want to talk about this part right here before we go into the rest of it.
Officials determined that WikiLeaks was being used by the Russians to disseminate material that was stolen from Democrats.
Now, the only evidence I have seen of this is that RT covers WikiLeaks positively. That's the extent of the evidence that I see that WikiLeaks has any connection to Russia.
Know where CBS's source is on that.
There's never been any public evidence that WikiLeaks has any association with Russia. Never. That's never been proven. That's never been shown. It's never been demonstrated. It's never been implied. It's just, well, I mean, it's been implied, but it's never like, there's never been like, we have fingerprints.
Officials determined that WikiLeaks was being used by the Russians to disseminate material that was stolen from Democrats.
Now, here's the problem, is I have read that report. I have read the report that 17 agencies, which turned out to be 3 agencies, signed off on. I read highlights of it on this show to you, the audience, and nowhere in there, ever, at all, is there any connection between Russia and WikiLeaks. I'm not even saying it's not possible. At this point, I'd buy it. I just don't see it. And it is a key point to this. It is a fundamental aspect.
Nothing could be further from the truth.
U.S. intelligence officials determined that WikiLeaks was being used by the Russians to disseminate material that was stolen from Democrats. There are 3 open investigations into Russian campaign meddling on Capitol Hill. Congressman Eric Swalwell.
He's demonstrated that he and other campaign members were willing to do whatever it takes to work with the Russians to get dirt on their opponent, Hillary Clinton.
I would say 2016 was a dirty run, because you could see that initially the Republicans, Free Beacon and others, were willing to do whatever it takes to defeat Trump and hire Fusion GPS. And then Hillary was willing to rig the entire DNC from an organizational structure perspective, from a superdelegate perspective, from a media coverage perspective, and hired the Fusion GPS firm. They were willing to do whatever it takes to win.
The one part that I'm having trouble with is, Pence in his interview with Fox.
Well, I bet Pence didn't know. I buy that.
I don't know if I do, because he's involved in the campaign.
Yeah, here's what my
theory. Why would he be left in the dark on
here's
all
why.
on
because
the campaign activities?
You got Trump Jr., you got Trump, you got Steve Bannon, maybe Manafort, probably not, but you got like this core group. Eventually, it's Reince Priebus, but initially you have this core group of the Trump team that truly gets what Trump was about, and that was he's not a politician. That's why he won.
Then why would he say?
And that was the group that probably knew.
And so instead of saying,
I bet
that they don't have any connections with it.
Pence was out of the loop, dude.
Then instead of saying no and giving a definitive answer, say I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a major difference between that.
Yeah.
Because no means that he's plugged into the campaign. No.
Well, you can't say I don't know, because that raises a lot of questions.
Right. But saying no and then coming out and it does happen.
All right. So let's keep going. Let's finish this clip and let's talk more.
Right.
Vice President Pence said through a spokesperson last night that he was never aware of anyone associated with the campaign being in contact with WikiLeaks. Donald Trump Jr.'s attorney accused congressional investigators of leaking the messages and added, "We have no concerns about these documents." Gail.
Jeff, thanks. I have a theory, and my theory is based on my personal experience with coverage of things in Linux and whatnot, technology in general, and it goes something like this. You start talking about something, and you start nailing it from a perspective of a company. Say in this case, maybe it's Canonical, and all of a sudden you've clicked into their perspective, and you are representing their perspective because it makes sense to you, not because they want you to. And they notice this because all of a sudden there's this person in a media space that's representing their perspective because they genuinely understand it, not because they've been promoted to. And that grabs the note that, like, Julian would notice that, and he would reach out and he would start working with them and say, hey, here's this information, and hey, here's this information, because this is actually how it went down. There's a super good article I have linked in the show notes on The Intercept. Well, it's pretty good. It is biased, but it is comprehensive. And there are people that are very fucking pissed about this because there's people that have gone to jail for WikiLeaks. Do you understand this? There are people that have gone to jail on behalf of Julian Assange and WikiLeaks to protect them and their sources and their methodologies. And now these people are unbelievably upset that Julian Assange was playing a political hack role. And if you look at the information that he published or that he sent to Donald Trump Jr., that Donald Trump Jr. published, Julian Assange, assuming he's running the WikiLeaks account, is undoubtedly offering political advice to the Trump campaign. And when you read this, it's all kinds of disturbing. And there's also messages from Julian Assange or the WikiLeaks account that suggest that perhaps that Donald Trump Jr. should leak Donald Trump Sr.'s taxes to them. Why? Why would the Trump camp want to do that? So that way WikiLeaks could look less biased. It was like controlled opposition. So here's their point. If this is a quote from the DM from the WikiLeaks account to Donald Trump Jr. And this is a 3-part thing, and this is number 3. If we publish them, it will dramatically improve the perception of our impartiality. This is the real kicker. That means the vast amount of stuff that we are publishing about Clinton will have a much higher impact because it won't be perceived as coming from pro-Trump or pro-Russia source, which the Clinton campaign is constantly slandering us with. Now, that's ironic because he gets upset in this that the Clinton campaign is slandering them as pro-Trump when he's fucking DMing Donald Trump Jr.
Yeah.
Right? That is the definition of pro-Trump.
What I want to know is, do we really know? I know what I saw that in the chat. Well, you don't know what you don't know, but are these all the DMs that we know about?
Yeah, who knows? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those.
Well, okay, so this is interesting.
Yeah.
So this came out because all of this has already been provided to a panel that's doing the investigation.
Yeah.
And a page of that did get leaked to the press. So all of this has already been gone over. I have an example of like some political advice. This is from the WikiLeaks account again. Hi Don, hope you're doing well. In relation to Mr. Assange and Obama and Clinton, they placed pressure on Sweden, the UK, and Australia to illicitly go after Mr. Assange. It would be real easy and helpful for your dad to suggest that Australia appoint Assange ambassador to D.C. for Australia. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really, and then they give him a quote. They give him a suggested quote that Donald Trump could say. And they try to phrase it in Donald Trump language. Like they're trying to give Trump a line.
A script.
Quote. This is something that they think Donald Trump should say.
It's
Quote.
really a tough, smart guy.
Yeah, that's really a tough, smart guy. Yeah, you should do this about the most famous Australian you have, or something similar.
Yeah.
That won't do it. They won't actually go for it, but it'll send the right signals to Australia, the UK, and Sweden to start following the law and stop bending it to interrogate themselves with the Clintons or integrate themselves with the Clintons. And then he gives a link for justiceforassange.com. What really disturbs me about this is he's actually giving a sentence to the Trump campaign. Say this. They don't ever say it. They don't ever act on anything he actually asked them to do ever, which is impressive,
Well,
except for the tweet.
Yeah, except for the tweet.
But Trump himself, that was have Trump tweet this. Trump never actually tweeted the link.
But he did tweet shortly after the information was leaked, though, within 15 minutes. He didn't put the
link
in.
Or like an hour. It was like an hour.
Yeah, but he didn't put the link in. But he did.
Right.
But it was almost pretty quick response.
So Kim.com tweets, and I kind of agree, who's surprised, really? He doesn't like Hillary, Julian Assange. She wanted to assassinate him with a drone for publishing the truth. And he's fishing for information like any good editor. And what he's talking about is he suggests that Julian Assange asking for Trump's taxes was like him befriending Don Jr., trying to trick him into giving him the taxes so
like
that way
a
they could
good
publish
cop,
it.
bad cop kind of a thing.
Like it was all a head game.
You know, I could kind of see that too, where he's quote unquote playing both sides, and he doesn't really care. I mean, yeah, he doesn't like Hillary, but he's just gonna throw out the dirt that needs to be thrown out.
I really don't like. I really don't
but
like.
But it's very
this.
slimy.
I don't like WikiLeaks getting political. I like them publishing. I like them being a transparency organization that publishes everybody's secrets.
Which goes to show you, Chris, which gets kind of worrisome that, an organization that, we've touted on the show, like, this is great, we're getting open and clear truth, that them themselves seem and appear to have a bias.
Right. But the information, if it's accurate, is information that definitely should be public.
And that's where I think we need to be very careful, not just what we do here, but all of us, is instead of it's so quick and easy to deflect and go, all right, well, Trump did this, but Hillary did this, or Hillary did this, so Trump did this. We need to focus on the truth of the information that's being presented.
Let me ask you this: is maybe Julian Assange the hero of the 2016 election? Like, if it wasn't for Julian Assange, Hillary might have won. If he wasn't publishing these emails and didn't coordinate with the Trump campaign and help them, Hillary might have gotten into office, and I think we probably would have been worse off. Having a Parkinson's patient in office would make Donald Trump's Twitter tantrums look mild. I have a clip in the overtime about how Hillary melted down. She completely melted down election night, and she started throwing stuff. She started yelling at people, and it's pretty well sourced, and I have it in the overtime. I don't think she's mentally fit to run for office. And you look at how she's handled her loss.
Oh, God.
It has been without grace. It has been without actual proper reflection.
Do you think that possibly is because of the fact that President Trump still likes to bring up the election, still likes to bring up the amount of electoral votes,
but
and that common courtesy where previous presidents winning would not bring up the election.
Imagine a scenario where Hillary Clinton's What Happened book came out, and it was brutally honest about how the public viewed her as a corrupt politician, as the public viewed her as a liar, how that she had really low turnout for her events, about how the Clinton family for years now has just gained a reputation for being super corrupt and murdering people. Like, imagine for a moment, just imagine a scenario for a moment where her What Happened book came out, and it was completely accurate. It would be devastating for the Democratic Party, but you would walk away and go, wow, she really realized what went wrong. Like, she is an intellectual person.
She woke up.
Right. But what you see now instead is this...
It's selfishness. It's
see this
ego.
super denial.
Yeah.
That makes... That feels like, you know how George Bush was the decider, how he wanted to stay the course? That it makes like that kind of pig-headed doggedness seem childish compared to what she has going. Yeah. So imagine for a moment that if she was running the country.
It was weird. I was having a conversation with my coworker today who is firmly Democrat. And, you know, he's like, well, the reason why Trump won, it was because of Hillary.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's like, he was like, Bernie could have been there.
Yep.
Hell, a can of paint might have won.
Joe Biden would have won.
Yeah, you know,
creepy Uncle Joe.
I know, but her ego got so in the way, and DNC was vulnerable, like you said. You know, where they were broke.
They were broke from Obama.
You got Clinton Cash here sitting over here saying, "Hey, you know, we're going to take care of you, but if we're going to take care of you, you need to make sure that you get the superdelegates behind us.
Yeah,
you kind of push out Bernie because
and they had Hillary for America, and they had the I'm forgetting the other one, but it was like a I'm with her. They had two different PACs that were raising money before she even announced her candidacy, supposedly on behalf of the DNC, and then all of the candidates down ticket. But in reality, they were taking a lot of that money and they were using it to launder it and make it look like individual small contributions, to make it look like enthusiasm for her. So she had the superdelegates, she had the entire DNC, she had funding, she had the media, she had all of that, and she still lost to Trump.
Yeah.
My point is, perhaps Julian Assange, while perverting WikiLeaks into a political weapon, a partisan weapon, did a favor.
Yeah.
Like, imagine, I got to be honest with you, if the Unfilter show had like, I don't know, 25 million downloads a month, and we were just like this massive media force, I would have been tempted to use my position to try to stop her from being elected. I'm not saying I wanted Trump, but I also didn't want her. I didn't vote for either one of those two.
Right, and unfortunately, because of our current political system and structure, we're kind of screwed in that respect.
But I also feel like there's to your point, we really need to be more skeptical on this show, because you can't even take WikiLeaks. You can't take any of it on face value.
We're so quick to get, and I think we're all guilty of this, all of us, of confirmation bias and living within our bubbles. And, one of the things is you need to, I don't know, maybe it's RT, I don't know what the slogan is or who has it, like question everything or question more
is RT's, yeah.
Yeah. That's a good slogan. We need to question more.
Everything.
RT,
all of it.
Question me.
WikiLeaks,
question Chris. Question all of our stuff.
We need to be more skeptical on this show. We need to think more critically.
Right. And dig through, I'll be fully to admit, Chris, I didn't know, going back to Trump, that he asked and answered that question 4 times.
Yeah, because that's not what gets reported.
No. But, it's one of those things where, thanks to the people of this show and thanks to you, you dug into it and go like, well, yeah, that's only one small piece of it. He was asked 4 times of that question, and yeah, he shouldn't have probably answered it that way, but that's how it was spun.
Yeah.
And that's where we need to be careful on both sides here, on all these things, that, hey, don't just dig into one website or 2 websites. Sometimes you got to dig into 10 and actually find the official documentation and get the info.
Yep, and we've had some good uptake, I think, in our Unfilter Discord room. I've seen a lot of people posting stories in there throughout the week, and hopefully when we get something even a little off, we'll come back and pick it up. And if you don't hear us correct something every now and then, if it's not like a big story, we toss it in the overtime as well. So be sure you're checking out the overtime for that. Now, I want to shift gears for a moment. I want to talk about Uranium One.
Okay.
I'm really I'm of two minds of this. There does seem to be something a little fishy with the Uranium One deal, and at the same time, I'm willing right now, producer Matt, if you're listening, we have a new red book, or we have a new digital red book.
We do. We have a way to keep track of things.
And
now.
I don't think we've made a submission on air yet. We've done one off air submission.
We have,
but I want to make an on air submission. If producer Matt's listening, you could contribute. I don't think this Uranium One deal is going to touch Hillary Clinton one bit.
Oh. I don't even think you need to write it. I think you're right, man. I mean, especially after what we heard and saw.
Now that's my red book prediction. Now
that's a good one.
Now that said, what do we always see happen with these kinds of investigations? They turn into political witch hunts, and they branch out, and all of a sudden they uncover all kinds of other things, connections to the Ukraine, certain money deals. Like
you go down the rabbit hole.
When you start investigating, you go down a rabbit hole that always, if you want, leads to some kind of corruption.
Yeah.
So Uranium One might be the quote unquote reason the investigation starts, but it might not end there. And it has a lot of people talking right now.
Okay, and that leads us to what the Attorney General Jeff Sessions is looking into now. He's looking into the Clinton Foundation. So he has announced that he may consider appointing a special prosecutor to look at, once again, the Uranium One deal that was done in 2010. As we've pointed out, there have been all sorts of government agencies that signed off on it. It wasn't just Hillary Clinton deciding this unilaterally.
It does set off red flags when they immediately start defending. But before we go down there, I'll be honest, you guys know my position on Hillary. I'd love for Uranium One to be the thing that's going to sink her. I'd love to sit here and say it's obvious that Bill took money from Moscow. It's obvious that the Clinton Foundation took money from their founders, from their donors, and then they influenced the government's decision. But the frickin' problem is it was such a bigger overall government initiative than just Hillary Clinton.
Kate Shepard.
Catherine Herridge on the Hill. Catherine, thank you.
No, my name is Chris. My name's...
We didn't get to see if she had a prop.
I bet she did. But she is holding the mic. That's kind of a prop.
Yeah. Technically prop, we will give that. That is a prop.
Yeah, I say we give it.
Republicans repeatedly mentioned and sometimes asked questions about Uranium One. The Attorney General Jeff Sessions says he needs a factual basis to appoint a special counsel to investigate Hillary Clinton. One has not yet been appointed, though Attorney General Sessions says he has asked federal prosecutors to evaluate issues presented by House Republicans, including Uranium One. Here's the exchange between Jeff Sessions and the Republican Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio.
What's it going to take to actually get a special counsel?
We will use the proper standards, and that's what only thing I can tell you, Mr. Jordan.
Well, I appreciate that.
You can have your idea, but sometime we have to study what the facts are and to evaluate whether it meets the standard.
Well said. So let me ask you this. If in fact,
a special counsel.
So what are the facts? What is Uranium One? Uranium One is the name of a South Africa-based mining company. Back in 2007, it merged with Eurasia Energy, based in Canada. And in 2010, the mining arm of the Russian nuclear agency, Rosatom, bought controlling interest in the company. Among other places, that mining company had operations in Wyoming that amounted to what the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, or the NRC, said was at the time about 20% of uranium production capacity in the U.S. Today, the NRC says it's about 10%. Now, here's the accusation. 9 people involved in the deal made donations to the Clinton Foundation totaling more than $140 million. In exchange, Secretary of State Clinton approved the sale to the Russians, a quid pro quo. The accusation first made by Peter Schweitzer, the senior editor-at-large of the website Breitbart, in his 2015 book, Clinton Cash. The next year, candidate Donald Trump cited the...
Now, I feel like the tossing around of Breitbart is sort of like an accusation almost these days. It's like it's a loaded, Breitbart, oh fuck, oh shit, that's the alt-right, oh shit, oh no. But Clinton Cash is a legitimately well-researched book that I have read, and I've recommended on this show before. Clinton Cash, if you want to check it out, it's also available on Audible. It's available on Kindle. You can get it however you want. I'm sure it's probably on the Pirate Bay. The thing is that there are a couple of odd timing issues with this. I'd say mostly around Bill, and not so much around all the other things that get all the attention, which Shep is about to talk about.
Accusation as an example of Clinton corruption.
Hillary Clinton's State Department approved the transfer of 20% of America's uranium holdings to Russia, while 9 investors in the deal funneled $145 million to the Clinton Foundation.
That statement is inaccurate in a number of ways. First, the Clinton State Department had...
Full stop. Wait, this is Shep on Fox.
Shep, I'm about to lose my contract.
Calling out the president, saying that's not accurate.
Yeah, I mean, he's not calling him a liar, but he did say, what did he say exactly?
$145 million.
You know what else strikes me about this is it seems like Trump was really, hold on. Listen to Trump. Like, he is laying down data. He is laying down numbers. He memorized this information.
The department approved the transfer of 20% of America's uranium holdings to Russia, while 9 investors in the deal funneled $145 million.
That is a lot of specifics for him to nail.
Are you sure he's not reading anything? He's looking in one direction and just kind of focusing.
I'm not sure. I mean, it wasn't common during his campaign speeches, but yeah.
If that's off the top, it's very, very well done.
To the Clinton Foundation.
That statement is inaccurate.
Inaccurate is what he calls it. So it's a lie. Or it's misspoken. Yeah, I'm not sure.
In a number of ways. First, the Clinton State Department had no power to veto or approve that transaction. It could do neither. Here's how it does work. By law, when a foreign company wants to buy anything with potential national security implications, an interagency committee of the federal government must approve it. The committee was given a broad mandate under President Reagan to advise the president on foreign investment transactions. That committee is called CIFAS, or the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. It includes 9 department heads. The Secretary of the Treasury is the chairperson. The rest are the heads of the Departments of Justice, Homeland Security, Commerce, Defense, State, and Energy, plus the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative and the Office of Science and Technology Policy. That's CIFAS. The 9 department heads all approved the sale of Uranium One. It was unanimous, not a Hillary Clinton approval. We don't know definitively whether Secretary Clinton participated at all directly. The then Secretary of State, I should say Assistant Secretary of State Jose Fernando, represented state on CIFAS. He says she did not, reporting that the Secretary never intervened. Further, neither Secretary Clinton nor the committee as a whole could stop any deal of this kind. The committee members evaluate a sale of anything potentially related to national security. By law, if one member objects, the president, and only the president, can veto such a transaction.
Yeah, so really this should be all pinned on Obama, right?
I mean, yeah, that's what they're saying.
This should be Obama's Uranium One deal, not Hillary's.
Just a side note. There's an article, a few articles about it, obviously with Shep, this is kind of against the Fox norm, right? The Fox News norm. A lot of the viewers started just railing him, like, oh my God, you should just go over to CNN throwing that crap out there. What bothers me about that is I know there's probably some out there listening and watching, like, you know what? I can't believe you're playing that, It's about factual information and getting the word out there. And just because maybe you personally don't like somebody, their politics or their shenanigans or both, doesn't negate the fact that there's true is true.
Here's the reality, regardless, is that this uranium mine in Wyoming was 20% of the U.S.'s uranium supply when this deal was being talked about. But today, now with other discoveries, it only represents 10%. It's lost 10% of its total. So now it's 10% of the U.S.'s uranium. Are we still as upset? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, and Axiom brings up a point too. What about the payout to the Clinton Foundation. Did that happen?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
It did.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's still...
yeah, and that's where I go is like, are we to assume that Hillary didn't have like a lot of political influence where she could politically work with other elements of government and she could apply pressure to get them to go with her direction? I think it'd be naive to say that if Hillary Clinton decided we're going to go a direction on a particular topic, and you wanted to be the agency that went against her, that's probably political suicide. When you have, think about this for a second, guys. The reality, and this is awful, but the reality is that when Hillary was in office, it's like having a Kardashian in office. Hillary Clinton is a celebrity, especially in the political space. In D.C., who's a bigger celebrity than the Clintons? The current president, Obama, and that's about it. She's royalty in the government. She's the former first lady. She's a former senator, and now she's the Secretary of State. If you want to go against her, have fun. Yeah, that's probably going to work out real good. So there is probably some logic in saying that if Hillary decides we're going this way, then a lot of the other governments, the lower levels of government probably fall in line.
Right.
I could subscribe to that to a degree.
Right.
I still don't think there's enough fire with this Uranium One deal.
No, and I don't believe there is either. I mean, yeah, there's some weird shadiness. I will fully agree
Especially
there.
Bill getting paid unbelievable millions for those speeches.
Loads of cash, absolutely. But in looking at the straight facts of the story as of right now, I mean, you just can't do it.
I guess Chase, for me, what it is like, why this? Why is it this? Why not?
You know the answer. You know the answer, man.
No, what I'm saying is there is legitimately way stronger cases to make against the Clintons.
Absolutely.
I'll give you an example. Why? Just look at the legal status of the Clinton Foundation. It's all based on the Clinton Library. It's a house of cards, if you will allow that use. It is a house of cards. The Clinton Foundation, there are so many tax aspects that they have either misrepresented over and over again when they've been audited, they have failed to disclose, or they haven't properly registered, that if you really wanted to go after the Clintons, there is so much just within the Clinton Foundation that you could do it, like stuff that is obviously breaking the law. You could Al Capone that shit if you wanted to. But instead, they go after Uranium One. And the only thing I can figure, dude, is that Uranium One is like this political name brand that they can throw around on Fox News and CNN and MSNBC, and they can get people talking about it, and they can use that to then find out all of these other things. Just like the Russia investigation has found out that Manafort was taking money from the Ukrainian government. Nothing to do with Russia, right? But you get an investigation going, and all of a sudden you start finding all this other related stuff. And that's the only angle I can really see here that makes any sense, because the people that are pushing this, they know how this game works.
Yeah.
Just like the ISIS game. Your Unfiltered show, I am really proud of us, Chase.
Yeah.
Because we have been, I think, on the right side of our ISIS coverage since the very first episode where we ever talked about ISIS. Because it's been a creation that has come since the show has been on the air.
Yeah.
There was a time in this show pre-ISIS.
ISIL.
IS.
Dash.
And now there is a post all of those things.
That's right. Yes.
And recently, Donald Trump just said it today. Recently, we've been kicking ISIS's ass. We've been just making win after win over ISIS. And of course, that's not a necessarily hard thing to do when you can just take the dial and you can take it from 11 and you can turn it down to 5 and then 4 and then 3. When you have control over the dial, all of a sudden things go a lot better. And if you doubt for a moment that the U.S. has control over the ISIS dial, then you haven't been listening to this show.
A secret deal reportedly allowed some of the most notorious ISIS fighters to escape from a besieged Syrian city with their weapons.
Now, how the fuck does that happen? We accidentally give them the weapons. We accidentally give them Toyota trucks. We accidentally give them food. We accidentally give them communications equipment. We accidentally send CIA agents there to train them. We accidentally give them U.S. cash. And then, by some crazy bureaucratic mistake, we accidentally allow them to flee a war zone with their weapons. All accidents, my friends. Accidents.
A secret deal reportedly allowed some of the most notorious ISIS fighters to escape from a besieged Syrian city with their weapons. Our partners at the BBC say 250 fighters were permitted to leave Raqqa. They got out with 3,500 family members to ISIS-controlled territory.
This is what you call a deal. And this is how we were able to knock ISIS all of a sudden, is because we just spun our operation down.
Now, the report says their convoy included nearly 50 rented trucks, 13 buses, and more than 100 ISIS vehicles. 10 trucks.
Hey, Chase,
Chris,
where does ISIS get 13 buses? You say each bus is probably worth $600,000. Where do they get 13 buses, Chase?
Usually probably off of a boat, I would assume, and then just delivered and
maybe
dropped
from
off.
Libya or something?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Trucks were loaded with weapons. The BBC says the U.S. and British-led coalition knew about the deal brokered by Syrian democratic forces, and they actually monitored the exodus.
I don't know what you just heard, but what I just heard was that our military and other militaries, Western militaries, just watched them leave.
As they left.
Here's an excerpt of Quentin Somerville's report.
The world was told only a few dozen local fighters were being let go. No foreigners and no weapons. But the trucks were crammed full of fighters, some wearing suicide belts.
They're just going to go out and they're just going to continue to exist. They're good though. They're not going to, they don't need to blow anything up. They don't.
God! What the
were
fuck,
heavily armed.
man?
After days of searching, we picked up the trail at a truck stop on the outskirts of Tabqa. Here we discovered the drivers, all civilians who drove IS to freedom. They'd been hired by the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces.
Nice drone footage, by the way.
Super nice.
Yeah, very smooth.
And where are they going? Oh, Turkey, probably. I don't know.
It was the longest journey of their lives. Their trucks were rigged with IS bombs in case the deal collapsed. They'd been
How do they know that?
They were told
they were picking up only a few hundred civilians, that it would be a quick job. They ended up driving day and night for 3 days. This couldn't look like the Islamic State's escape to victory. So the SDF insisted there would be no flags and no banners.
No, because it's not about that. These are hired guns. You understand what's happening here, right? These were the core mercenaries. This is it. This is what it took to fuck up an entire nation, Syria. It took these 300 psychotic sons of bitches that we hired, that we financed, that we armed, that we gave communications and training to, and then when we decided to spin this all down, we gave them safe exit. And it's happening right in front of your faces. It is happening, and they don't care. They're so brazen about it. The reason why there's no flag is because they never had a flag to begin with. The ISIS flag was a generic bullshit flag to begin with. It never was a serious flag. This was a creation from beginning to end, and now we're watching it spin down. And there's just literally no other interpretation of it. And it is so offensive to see it, isn't it? Doesn't it upset you to see this?
Well, yeah, I don't know if anybody heard me what I said, but I mean, this is ridiculous.
This is what your
this is egregious.
Tax dollars go to, dude.
Instead, IS fighters sat boldly on top of the trucks. The axle on one lorry broke. It was so overloaded with IS weaponry.
Why do they get to keep their guns? And why does our military just watch them go with all of their weaponry?
The Pentagon spokesman says the United States was not part of this deal, but the spokesman also points out the U.S. was not prepared to bomb buses full of women and children.
Yeah, I bet.
Right.
Of course.
Yeah, because we saw all those women and children in these videos.
Yeah, it just broke the axle, Chase. It broke the axle. I'm nearly sick by it. I'm nearly sickened by it. It is so disgusting.
I'm shaking my head. It's well, it's time to level up. and head into my sack.
Yeah, let's refresh, dude. Let's get into the sack.
Let's do that. Hey, Veratuna writes in and says, hey, welcome back, Chase. Well, not sure what other people want to see talked about, but between the BBC expose of the U.S. letting ISIS leaders leave Raqqa with assistance while turning a blind eye, and the laughable hysteria around everyone blaming everything on Russia, George Takei, Brexit,
Did
Dutch
you see the George Takei stuff? And did you see him blaming Russia? Did you hear the Howard Stern interview?
I have not heard the clips from the interview. I do know about the Russia thing.
I listened to the Howard Stern. He himself admits in the Howard Stern interview.
The uncomfortable, I know.
And then later on, he has the sack to blame it on Russia.
People that I like are turning into people that I don't like now.
Louis C.K.
Man.
I know.
Let me continue. What I really hope you drill down into is the absolute humanitarian disaster that is going on in Yemen, but also the horrendous revelation that human slavery is now going on in Libya. Yes, that Libya. We came, we saw, he died.
Yeah.
When will the world start making U.S. accountable for this willful destruction of civilized countries?
Whoa. Okay, so listen. Mr. Veratuna there is a longtime Club 33 member.
Yeah.
And he's just brought up a couple of things so Yemen, Libya, and also the Philippines with that guy who's going crazy over drugs.
Yeah.
The president. These are my 3 top stories that are not getting enough coverage right now that I'm super annoyed about. And so I felt like since Veratuna is a longtime contributor to our Patreon page, the least I could do was to reflect his wishes, and we'll play some clips to cover that. So, number one, because of our Patreon Veratunda, we were going to cover a little bit of Saudi Arabia's unauthorized war in Yemen, which has just gotten a big dose of cold water here in the States.
We begin this afternoon as the House of Representatives has declared the U.S. role in the Saudi-led war on Yemen is unauthorized. The U.S. has provided military support to Saudi Arabia since the Obama administration. However, that assistance has increased tremendously under President Donald Trump.
Yeah, so when Obama was in office, it started with our ships right off international water and our planes right up in international air. And we were refueling Saudi Arabia's planes. Now, the backstory here, for those of you that don't remember our coverage on this, is there's a civil war, a legitimate civil war, at least from what my understanding is presently. And, of course, maybe initially I might have thought Syria was a legitimate civil war as well. But at least at my current understanding, it seems to be a party of the people has rose up. And this party of the people is sort of anti-West influence, anti-external government influence. It's sort of a nationalist party. And they rose up and they overthrew the Yemeni government that was, by the way, just happened to be pro-West, pro-Saudi Arabia. And there's the problem, right? Because Saudi Arabia is not going to have this. They had a puppet government in place in Yemen. Now, all of a sudden, this fucking nuisance of the people that's trying to take over, we can't have this. We can't have this. And so Saudi Arabia has been trying to stop the takeover of their government, of Yemen's government. And you got to go look at a map to understand why they even care. You just need to go look at a map if you don't understand.
Yeah.
And this has slowly escalated into one horrible human travesty after another.
Washington provides weapons and logistical support to Saudi Arabia in their ongoing campaign. Here's RT correspondent Ashley Banks with more on the resolution.
You know, it turns out, did you hear that RT now has to register as foreign agents?
Yeah.
And did you see that there was 3 reasons why they must register as foreign agents? And I wanted to know. The CBC doesn't have to register. Al Jazeera doesn't have to register. So why did RT have to register as a foreign agent?
RT has broadcast studios in the United States. CBC does not.
They actually do. They do have a U.S. office. I looked into this. So does Al Jazeera.
An office, but an actual
right, but no, like a corporate
broadcast studio.
Right, but they Al Jazeera, CBC, and RT America all have U.S. companies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So one of the reasons there's three reasons, but the one that stood out to me and the one that I thought might stand out to you as to why RT had to register. And I'm not even necessarily saying they shouldn't have to, by the way, because it's obvious where their funding comes from here. I mean, so let's not pretend like they're like the bastion of independent journalism.
Right.
But the reason really fucking bothered me, and it's because they hosted third-party debates.
What? Really?
Yeah. That was one of the deciding factors as to why RT had to register as foreign agents, is because they gave a platform to Jill Stein and your good buddy.
Gary Johnson.
That creeps me out.
That is a little creepy.
Anyways,
Yeah.
Now when you hear this kind of coverage, you can understand why we would want to try to slow them down.
The resolution passed by the House of Representatives publicly acknowledged the Pentagon has been sharing information and refueling warplanes that Saudi Arabia and other allies are using to attack Houthi rebels.
All right, so there was number one. Now, just to finish out Veritunda before we finish the mail sack, because I know this is going to be a really long mail sack, the situation in Libya. Did you read that? Did you read that part of the email?
Yes, that Libya, we came, we saw, he died. Talking
Right.
about the human slavery going on.
This is awful, and you got to give a tip of the hat because it's really being exposed by CNN. And a lot of times here on this show, we'll shit all over the face of CNN, but they are legitimately doing some genuine reporting. They got down and they recorded video of a human auction in Libya. By the way, this is in the quote-unquote liberated area of Libya. Liberated by Hillary Clinton and the United States.
A man addressing an unseen crowd. Big strong boys for farm work, he says. 400.
Yeah, $400.
700. 700?
That's less than the new iPhone 10. You can buy a human being for less than the new iPhone 10.
800. The numbers roll in. These men are sold for 1,200 Libyan pounds, $400 apiece.
I don't know. I don't know how legitimate this is, but I've heard more and more stories about slavery in Libya ever since the U.S. actions there. So, yeah, Veritunda, I wanted to cover that in the show because you have been a longtime patron, and we take all the input from our patrons super seriously.
Yeah.
And it's something I want to do more and more. If you're in Club 33, we'll try to put more clips in the show here. So thank you, Veritunda. And the Libya stuff is just super disappointing, but to go back to the Yemen stuff just for a moment, that is something this show is tracking. We're not actively covering it every single episode, but in the background, we have been collecting clips for like a Yemen special that we might do if interest builds. Our gut sense of the matter is there's just not a lot of interest in the Unfilter audience. But it feels like it's changing. And so perhaps our timing will work out. We have been collecting clips about Yemen for about 7 months now, and we may do a special on it at some point. We may just decide to incorporate some of that coverage into the show. Stay tuned and find out.
Yeah. Sean writes in and says, "Hello, I've been trying to find some decent video clips of what has been happening in the Middle East as of late with the Prince of Saudi Arabia imprisoning people, powerful people, and the Cold War is having with Iran and Yemen. We just talked about that briefly. A primer from the BBC, and there's a link there in the sack.
You know what? I will refer him to last week's Overtime, where we covered some of the shit that's going down in Saudi Arabia. Essentially, the Sun is taking over, and he just jailed a whole bunch of Saudi Arabia sons of bitches. One of them is believed to be one of the financiers of the 9/11 attack, too, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And by jailed, that means they've been put in the Ritz-Carlton. So it's the most plush jailing ever. That's all in episode 258 in the Overtime section.
Like a minimum security resort? Is that what they say, like Office Space? Right.
It's literally the Ritz-Carlton, yeah.
AT writes and says, "Good day from down under, mates. You might have seen that Australia has just voted to legalize gay marriage with 62% voting yes. The Equality Campaign is calling this a landslide victory, but when you think that 4 out of 10 people voted no, that's a sizable crunch of the population against the measure. Sometimes it's not always 4 out of 10. Some people just don't vote. The No camp focused on protecting religious liberty and freedom of speech. And some surveys showed that up to 90% of voters on both sides say this was an important issue. Now that the country has been given the go-ahead, it's up to our politicians to get the laws right. You guys are my go-to every week for American news, and I hope you get enough dollary dues. That's
I like it. That's
like a musical instrument, like a didgeridoo.
A dollary-do.
A didgeridoo to reach the supplemental show soon.
Me too.
Finally, Death Mind Us writes in and says, "Hey, Chase, I guess I'm going to go down another path for the sack. Ever since Weinstein was outed as a sexual predator, or something a lot of people seem to have already known, other celebrities and a couple of politicians have been put in the spotlight. The one that shocked me personally was Louis C.K. because I'm a fan of some of his work. I had a discussion with one of my friends who, without going into much detail, basically defended him because he, quote, asked, quote, but that turned into the discussion into where does the line stop for people using political/workplace influence to acquire sexual favors? Interesting times. Keep up the great work, guys."
Can I go really meta on you?
You can go so meta.
This is just because
meta all over me,
it's just
man.
the sack. We have the high note coming up. But I think part of the problem here is that institutions like Hollywood or businesses like banks, in my case, and governments are artificial creations by our imagination at power structures. They're power structures simply because we all agree that they're power structures, right?
Yeah.
Like Jupiter Broadcasting is a company because you believe it's a company and I believe it's a company. And I run this company because you subscribe to the idea that I run this company.
Yeah. Plus, there is an actual legal document that says it is a company.
But what gives that legal document authority? The fact that we all believe in that legal document,
right,
and that there's a court system that we believe in.
Yeah, we believe in a land of laws and regulations.
And there's a government agency that can enforce certain actions because they have incredible power now.
Yeah.
I would propose to you that this is not natural. That this is a creation that has we've all adopted as we're born into it. And we never even stop to think if we want to subscribe to it. And when you give people artificial positions of power over other people, these perversions are unavoidable. And I had never even really thought about sharing this story because to me, it never was a big deal. But in light of all of this stuff that's been going on, I could say it happened to me too. When I was 18, 19 years old, maybe 20 at the very, very oldest. Well, I'll just put it this way. The day I graduated from high school, school got out early for us. Probably did for everybody, I guess. Your last day of high
everybody
school.
gets a half day.
Seniors get out early.
Oh, absolutely.
And everybody walked to the bus or they walked to their cars, and I walked to my car. I just recently gotten my license because I wasn't in a big rush. I got in my car and I drove 25 minutes south to Everett. And about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I parked in the parking lot of my new job. And I started my new job without even having lunch after I graduated high school. So I was literally 18 years old when I went into a full-time job. I didn't even have a 30-minute break between graduating high school and starting a new job.
Dude.
And about a year or so into that job, so I was probably just over 19 years old, a new boss came in, and she was about 45, 46 years old. And at least 3 times when we were at like a Christmas event or we had just completed a merger and there was a party or the other Christmas event or a Halloween event, actually. We had a little Halloween party for our department. So at least 4 times she came on to me sexually. She was all over me. She was grabbing me. She grabbed my crotch. She was hanging on me. And she had great boobs. Her face, not so great, but man, she had a great body. And as a 20-year-old kid, I didn't take it as some sort of violation. I didn't quite take it as a compliment. I took it as a look at that. My boss kind of has a thing for older guys. And I told all my buddies about it, and we laughed about it. I didn't own it. It didn't become my identity. It didn't define me. I wasn't fucking sexually harassed 4 times by my boss in the workplace and then became a victim. It just was something that happened to me. But now when you look at all these things that everybody's talking about, it's like, well, I guess I have a story too. But it doesn't. I don't consider it a violation. In fact, sometimes I go, geez, I wonder if I should have tried to hit that. But I understand it's different for every single person.
Right.
And so when you see all these things coming out, it's extremely hard to understand what is like this is a thing that happened to me, and this is a thing that scarred me.
Right. And that's where, we need to be considerate to those that have been scarred, and then that have had things that they've lived with for 10, 20, sometimes 30 plus years, where they felt like they could never come forward and never say anything about it because it would be the end of their career or something that they truly love to do and enjoy. So, I guess that's one of the nice things that's going on now, where people are starting to feel empowered.
I do feel like it's something that needs to change.
And it does need to change.
Yeah.
We all have done it, all of us, when we go to our jobs and you're starting a new job and when you laugh at the sexual harassment videos or the panda or whatever the case may be, and then then some of those situations you see happen in front of you, and
you know what? There's only one story really that's kind of surprised me, and in fact it just doesn't go away either.
A new allegation of inappropriate conduct against former President George H.W. Bush. In a Time magazine interview, Rosalind Corrigan says she was 16 years old when Bush, then 79, squeezed her buttocks at an event in 2003 where her father and his fellow intelligence officers met the former president.
Yeah, you remember how Bush was the CIA? Anyways, it now turns out that this guy has been an ass grabber for like decades. He's an ass grabber even now. In his wheelchair, he's still grabbing ass.
Wow.
This guy has been an ass grabber from day one. And really, like, what is this? This is, you got Harvey Weinstein, who's on the left, and now you got Bush Sr., who's on the right. Like, everybody's morals can take a couple of step backs now.
Corrigan tells the magazine her initial reaction was absolute horror and confusion.
And her account is similar to those that was shared by at least 3 other women who say they were inappropriately touched by Bush during similar photo ops. Spokesman Jim McGrath issued an apology on the former president's behalf in the wake of this latest allegation.
Well, then everything's fine. If he's sorry, he's sorry. Yeah. So, anyways, I tried to take our sack super seriously this week. We tried to give it a lot of thought and get some clips in there. So thank you to our patrons, patreon.com/unfilter. This is a listener-supported show. We are trying to get to another milestone where we could do additional coverage. And do we have any spots left in Club 33?
No, we are fully packed. However, if you click on the Become a Patron, and you go through the process, there is a link that you can click on to get an email notification when a spot opens up in Club 33.
I feel like we should do something special for the current club, and then we should open up to some more. So patreon.com/unfilter. If you want to get your word in on the show, you got to be in Club 33.
Boom.
If you just want to give us your feedback, you want us to read it, just go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact.
Yeah. Thanks for filling the sack this week, guys.
Yeah, really.
We'll have a special turkey edition next week.
Yeah, we've decided that we're going to try to do Wednesday night.
Yeah.
Even though it's it might be a holiday, but we've decided we're going to try to make it work.
Exactly.
So let's wrap it up on a high note. And a green light at that, Chase.
Time is running out for Bay Area cities to decide where they stand on recreational pot.
That's right. Ready or not, it is legal on January 1st. We have 2 reports for you tonight. We begin with KPX5's Lon Ramirez live in San Jose, which just did a 180 and gave the green light to recreational pot sale.
Mommy needs a joint.
So California's really got to get. I don't understand how they're not getting their shit together on this.
They should have just said, hey, Washington,
or Colorado,
Alaska,
DC,
Oregon, or you guys any ideas?
You know how we've been having pot for ages now? Yeah, they just are really screwing this up.
What?
That's right, Veronica. There was very little opposition to this measure that essentially opens up recreational use of pot and pot sales for adults only over the age of 21 as of January 1st.
We just got in our house.
Jesus Lozano had to show a medical card in order to be able to buy marijuana in San Jose this afternoon.
How would you describe the size of that jar, Chase? For the audio audience there.
I would say that is the size of your typical jelly jar.
No, it's way bigger than that.
Really?
Yeah, that's like a Costco size of jelly. That's a full grip.
Yeah,
it's not. Yeah,
that's full palm full.
So like a Costco like half bucket.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You know what's in that thing?
No.
Keef. It's nothing but keef. It's just a jar full of keef, which that jar alone has got to be worth hundreds of dollars.
But soon, just like anyone else who wants to use pot recreationally, he'll just have to show an ID proving that he's over the age of 21.
I see it the very same way that they do for alcohol. You know, it took a long time for alcohol to get legalized essentially, and I feel like it's the same way for marijuana.
I had a really interesting conversation with a family member between now and last episode. And they own one of the larger cannabis shops in Everett, which is a town, 20 minutes south of here?
Yeah.
And I didn't know this. So it was a total revelation to me. He talked a lot about some of the security precautions that they've had to take recently. You know, he had a big concern about the federal banking system and stuff like that. But it really does, at the end of it, it feels just like somebody who's starting a business and learning things on their own as things come up and trying to adapt. It was interesting.
Figure out problems and solving them.
Fascinating conversation.
Yeah,
I'll share insights as we cover this stuff. But I want to talk. I want to spend this week talking about Jeff Sessions because we mentioned his testimony earlier in the show. We got a little more in the overtime, but there's a moment that came up with Jeff that wasn't about Russia at all. It was about pot.
Marijuana is not as dangerous as heroin. Would you agree with that?
I think that's correct.
Well, thank you, sir. I would hope that in your enforcement that you would look at the limitations you've got. There's always an opportunity cost, and put your opportunity cost, your enforcement on crack, on cocaine, on meth, on opioids, and on heroin. Marijuana is the least bothersome of all. 28 states or 29 states in the District of Columbia have legalized it for medical purposes. 8 states in the District of Columbia for recreational purposes. Justice Brandeis famously said that the states are the laboratories of democracy. I would hope you'd look at marijuana and look at the states as laboratories of democracy and see how they've helped.
There's been a lot of talk about what Jeff Sessions is going to do in regards to cannabis, and a lot of people are concerned that he's going to try to crack the F down on stuff.
In states where they've got medical marijuana, they have 25% less opioid use.
25% less opioid use in states that have marijuana. I'm going to play that again so that way if you want to clip this out on YouTube or maybe just in Overcast or whatever you listen on podcasts, this moment here I think is worth sharing with your friends and family that they're not quite sure why should cannabis, why recreational? I mean, medical, sure, but why recreational? Because once you expand availability, you start to get massive numbers of people off of opioids, and I'm going to play this clip so that way you have this for them. Mark this time in the show.
As laboratories of democracy and see how they've helped. In states where they've got medical marijuana, they have 25% less opioid use. It gives people a way to relieve pain without using opioids, which inevitably leads to death and crime. And so I would hope you take a look at that.
We will take a look at it, and we'll be looking at some rigorous analysis of the marijuana usage and how it plays out. I'm not as optimistic as you.
I don't know what his fucking problem is, to be honest with you. How much more data do you need? And then how much...
It's not about data to him anymore. It's not. He doesn't care.
You said one time that good people don't smoke marijuana. Which of these people would you say are not good people?
Well, let me explain how that occurred.
All right.
And I explain
quickly. John Kasich, a good person. George Pataki, Rick Santorum, Newt Gingrich, Ted Cruz, Jeb Bush, George Bush, Arnold Schwarzenegger, or Judge Clarence Thomas. Which of those are not good people?
Let me tell you how that came about, Congressman.
This is an interesting delay tactic that he does.
So the question was, what do you do about drug use, the epidemic we're seeing in the country, and how you reverse it? Part of that is a cultural thing. I explained how...
What does he mean by that? Does he mean black people smoke pot? What does he mean by that?
What's he meaning?
I became United States Attorney in 1981.
This is your problem.
And the drugs were being used widely.
Yeah, the hype was really wide back then.
Over a period of years, it became unfashionable, unpopular, and people were seen, and it was seen as such that good people didn't use marijuana.
You know, one of the biggest things that changed my perspective on cannabis, one of the biggest personal influences I had, is when I was doing IT consulting, and it was before I did it myself. Before I was independent, I worked for a company, and I just got a paycheck. It was great because they had a sales team, they had multiple IT people, and I would just go in and have clients. Now, it eventually ended up that I just had a client load that was unsustainable for me. But one of the things that opened my eyes significantly, and this is a while ago, was there was 3 owners of this company, and they were some of the hardest working guys I'd ever been with. They inspired me to work harder, and they all were really good at their jobs. One was super good at sales, one was incredibly good at building systems, and the other one could communicate with people in a way that made them all feel at ease about their IT systems, and at the same time, he could manage to get it all implemented. And they were all super right-wing. And that really stood out to me because I'd never worked in a business where people so openly talked about politics before. Because it was a small company, and they were the 3 owners.
Right, yeah.
And they were all in the office together. So they were all just bullshitting about, it was Bush back then. And you know what was crazy? They were all pot smokers. They all were smoking pot. And in my world, only crazy liberal hippies smoke pot.
It's do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, and so that's when I realized, wow, these super productive, business-owning Republicans are smoking pot. And a couple of them, 2 of them, their wives were in real estate. And back then, there was a real estate boom, so they were making like $1 million a year. They were like super competitive, and they were in like for people in Washington, you'll know they were in the Bothell and Mill Creek and Bellevue and northern Seattle areas selling homes, right? So super lucrative home areas. And they were smoking pot. They were all smoking pot. And it just totally blew my mind about, wait a minute, I thought everybody that smoked pot was lazy sons of bitches hanging out on their couch playing Xbox. Well, now, all of a sudden, these business owners and these real estate agents making $1 million a year are all pot smokers? This can't be.
And mommies that need joints?
Yeah, mommy needs a joint, Jude.
Mommy needs a joint.
Yeah. Now, all of these federal laws are a bit of a buzzkill for the cannabis movement. There could be one person, one hero, one advocate for the cannabis movement that could change everything, and it happens to be
Paul Heyman,
a 12-year-old girl.
Attorney General Jeff Sessions is being sued by a 12-year-old girl from Colorado who wants to legalize marijuana nationwide. The lawsuit comes from Alexis Bortel, whose family moved from Texas to Colorado to access medical marijuana after FDA-approved epilepsy treatments proved ineffective. The suit could potentially benefit millions of Americans who cannot legally obtain cannabis to treat their ailments. Will this be enough to get the Sessions Justice Department on board? The party panel has returned. Tom Shalhoub, Nan Hayworth, and Matt Welch.
I like the idea of a party panel, dude.
I like the party panel.
That's what Unfilter is. It's a party panel.
Party panel. You know, speaking of parties, Chris, you have, well, I'm a terrible segue. But anyway, talking about parties.
I got a party all the time.
You got party on the internet.
I do.
Where people can watch you and your hijinks.
Sure.
And your parties.
Sure.
Where can people check that out?
You know, I'm going to give a plug for this week's episode of Linux Unplugged. We just had a really rambunctious, fun episode yesterday that came out. Go to jupiterbroadcasting.com for that. Go to patreon.com/JupiterSignal if you just want to support the whole network, not just this show. Because the reason why I mentioned that to you Unfilter audience is there may be a project in the future that I publish there initially only for the Jupiter Signal patrons. It's got nothing to do with Unfilter. It's not related to technology, but I'm mentioning it now just in case at patreon.com/JupiterSignal. Otherwise, follow me on the Twitters at ChrisLAS. Follow the network at Jupiter Signal. And of course, our Patreon at patreon.com/Unfilter. And if you want to stick around, if you got a little extra room, we do have a great overtime coming up. But if you got to go, if you got to leave, perhaps Chase could leave you with some parting wisdom. Chase, where can people find you?
If you want some Chase in your face.
I desperately want more Chase in my face.
Follow me on the Twitter at Nunes, Nunes. I do have the verified check mark.
Wait a minute. Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah. I'm the real one.
Do you think that's because of the whole newness versus newness thing?
You never know.
I think
I started it, and we'll
Can
start
I make
the
a
rumor
suggestion?
Here. Yeah, go for it.
I think you should tweet a picture in the next couple of days of the beard.
Oh, it will.
So if you
want
to see Chase with a beard, check out his Twitter page for that.
Yes. Also check out my Discord channel at discord.gg/GeekGamerTV. Doing some train driving. And all my stuff on YouTube on Geek Gamer TV.
You should play some Rust, dude. It's a lot of fun.
I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it.
All right, well, if you're going to go, then there's only one last bit of advice we'll give you. Join us live. It's a hell of a lot of fun. JBLive.tv for that. And you can get the live time converted to your local time at jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar/contact for the contact page. And we'll see you right back here
next week.
All right, let's see if we can name this thing here. jbtitles.com or just bang suggest right now.
Bang it.
Bangin'. What do you think? You got any title ideas for this thing?
Oh, gosh.
The intro was about Donald Trump Jr.
Don John's DMs.
Junior's DMs is pretty good.
Junior's DMs.
I kind of like Junior's.
I like Junior's DMs, too.
So just J. So would it be the lowercase r? Is that the proper? So JR''S Juniors, and then would it be DMs like that? Would that be the appropriate? So would it be two
Capital
apostrophes?
D, yeah.
That's a lot of apostrophes.
Or you can go Junior apostrophe spell it out Juniors, or is it JR's DMs?
You think Juniors? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I like it until I see it, and then I'm like, geez, that looks clunky.
But it sounds good.
It does. That's tough, dude. That's a tough call. Reverse WikiLeaks? Ooh, what do you think about that? Reverse WikiLeak. That's not bad either.
Ooh.
Our chat room's onto it today, dude. And the Discord, too.
WikiLeaks patched?
Assange's WikiLassange, no CIA, NSA brokers. This is tough. Nice. Well, what do you think, Chase?
Well, I like Junior's DMs.
I know, but I don't like the way it looks at all.
Well, you can spell out the word Junior.
Yeah, but
S.
I still don't.
I know.
And plus, I think JR is the better brand for Donald Trump Jr.
Then just do Junior, JR's apostrophe, but don't put DM next to it. Maybe
Is
put underneath.
DMs is the appropriate way for DMs? Is it DM apostrophe S or is it DM lowercase s?
DM apostrophe S.
Is that or is it DMS?
No. The S is not next to it. It's apostrophe S. That's what I would do.
That just looks like shit, dude. So here, I'll post it. I'm gonna right.
I know.
Well, I'm gonna post it over here in the. I'm gonna copy paste it in the DMs in the Discords, so you can see. Look at Junior's DMs. It looks weird.
I like it. It's okay.
See, Steve says it's DM lowercase s.
Yeah, that works too. I mean, they're both. I think they're both fine. They're both. It's like neighbor spelled in Canada and spelled in America. It's good in depending on where you are.
Junior leaks DMs. So the redneck is also saying DMs. So I think the way to solve this would be, let's go over to Twitter real quick. Does Twitter call it DMs anymore?
I think they probably
they just call it messages now.
Yeah.
They don't even direct messages.
Yeah, direct messages. DMs lowercase s equals multiple DM. I say you can go either way, and we'll be fine.
You know what? I think I should go without the. I'm going to go lowercase s on the DM and just avoid the double apostrophe.
There you go. That will get you out of that.
Junior's DMs.
Done.
I like it. I think that's actually pretty good.
That's a winner.
All right, thank you guys.
And I win an iPhone. That's amazing.
Yeah.
No,
wipe. All right. Well, so we're going to be back next week. Yeah. So, guys, thank you for being here. Big thank you to producer Matt, and I hope you have a great week.
Yep, same here.
And Coda Radio. I'll be live tomorrow, by the way, with Coda Radio at noon JB time. But otherwise, bye, everybody.
Aloha.